Vin's back, and he's not alone. Spurred on by tragedy, the family is brought back together, and while Brian and Dom are on opposite sides of the law once again, their bonds of brotherhood are stronger than ever. A twisted tale of revenge, the untold costs of good police work, and a broken family kept me glued to my seat, and kept me wondering, can the Toretto family survive this? The magnetic presence of Vin Diesel left my pulse pounding throughout this delight for the senses, and left me hungry for a new chapter in the Fast saga. Timestamp, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 52 seconds. Cat with wry smile. Emoji. Welcome back to Twin Diesel. My name is Luke Timmons, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Cian Sullivan. This week we've been watching Fast and Furious, and Cian?
It's not a movie. According to the credits, it's a photo play. It's not a movie this time.
Sorry.
A lot of differences this time.
Apologies.
One.
This week we've been watching photo play Fast and Furious.
And we've got a special guest.
We do have a special guest.
Now, let's see if this special guest can not arrive until they're supposed to, like our previous fuckwit guests. Do you want to give Cian's bio, maybe?
Cian's bio.
Yeah. You know how people do it for like a talk or something? They introduce the person by giving a list of their accomplishments?
Cian is a leading technological expert and a renowned astrophysicist. Throughout his many years in the industry, he's helped countless people overcome many problems, and this week he's been kind enough to lend us his expertise in discussing this photo play.
He's actually acting as a consultant for us this time, after a long and storied career in the computational arts.
We're paying him
an
excessive amount of money to be here.
It's so much money. We don't have a budget, and he's taken all of it.
We're not making money from this podcast, but Cian is.
Welcome.
So welcome, Cian Sullivan.
Thank you guys so much. Truly, you give me too much credit and too much money.
You did refuse to do it unless we paid you that much. So let's not put up airs, as it were. Is that anything? Is that a saying?
Yeah, both me and Cian. This is going to be confusing.
Yeah. So so I can sort this out, Luke, because typically we do nicknames. So I'll come up with them now. This week, Luke, you're gonna be Jessary Bezo.
I'm Jessary Bezo.
Jessica, you're Jessica Bezo.
I'm Jessica Bezo.
Yeah. I'm gonna be digital dermatitis. And Cian's gonna be digital dermatitis. Digital dermatitis. No, that doesn't solve the problem, does it? Because it's so very similar.
I think
no. So Cian, instead, you're gonna be Ancho Chill. You're Ancho Chill this week. So I tell you what, Luke, you can refer to me as Digi. Or Deji works as well.
Deji.
That's a reference to KSI and his brother. You can call me Deji, and Cian, you could stay Cian, but I think I'd prefer... No, maybe Ancho Chill is better. But we'll call you Cian, and I will be exclusively referred to as Deji in this one. Usually we forget about the names, but not this time.
Yeah, this time we might actually have to use the nicknames.
I'm going to set the nicknames right now. I have renamed myself to Deji, and I think we're going to stick with that. Luke, you can be Jess. I'm going to rename you to Jess.
Okay.
That's Jess. All right, and Cian, you can be, since you're our guest, you get to maintain your actual name.
Well, I wanted to participate in the nickname shenanigans.
Oh, okay. Then I'll rename you as well to. So the full one is Ancho Chill. How about Ant? Ant of Deck fame. There you go. Jess, Deji, and Ant. Nice. It's a special week, isn't it, Luke?
It is.
Very special week.
This week, it was Vin Diesel's birthday.
That's actually not what I meant, but yes, that is true.
So on July 18th, it was Vin Diesel's birthday, and the week before that, it was Michelle Rodriguez's birthday.
Oh, fuck. Will we have a quick, will we sing happy birthday to them? Because they'll be listening.
Sure, I definitely want to sing happy birthday.
Yeah, so, and then we'll all be synced up as well, I guess?
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Oh, we're
Oh,
starting.
no, you've...
Happy birthday.
birthday
No, you can just go for it. You can just sing. Happy birthday to Vin and
Michelle
Rodriguez 1
Rodriguez.
week before. Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
Vin
Vin
and
Michelle
Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez.
1 week before.
Happy birthday. This is great audio.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear.
dear
The Fast and
Vin.
Furious
Cast.
cast restricted to Vin and Michelle.
But slight
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
You think they'll like that? How about this? There's an email address in our description on like Spotify or something. So Vin and Michelle can just message us if they heard that one. Let us know. But do you want to know why I said it was a special week? It's
sure.
because this week we had 2 vaccinations in the call. Woo!
Wow.
And also, shockingly, this time it's not a bad movie. All of the previous times it was bad.
No.
Pretty much.
No.
It was often bad. We had a lot of problems with it. I think the tone this time is going to be a lot different because I really liked this movie, and as I said to you today, I'm genuinely actually excited to watch the next ones.
I won't have to disagree with you on the first part, but agree on the second. I think the first movie is pretty good.
The first movie is pretty good. I shouldn't lump the first movie together with.
And we did enjoy Too Fast, Too Furious when we watched it.
That is true. I'll give Too Fast, Too Furious that.
I think the experience of watching it with your friends, perhaps, and making a comedy podcast about it might be colouring your view of the films.
How dare you? First of all, I am a impartial reviewer.
They're even better than we've been talking about. We've just been
We've been
bogged
severely
down with all
downplaying
of
it.
this stress of the podcast.
We're always just taking notes and freaking out. Yeah.
I was so angry about having to make a podcast after. Oh, I have to write it down.
I hate this podcast.
I just have to recording.
All right, Jess. How do you want to do this? You want to go straight into a summary?
Cian, I was thinking of doing something different this time. Why don't you give me a 30-second summary of this movie? Deji, Cian, not
Okay. All right, let me compose myself. So this movie, it has the same plot as the first movie, pretty much. But it does a lot of things better. It has a lot more Vin. Oh, that's the other thing I should say. This is not only what was it? It's not a movie. It's like a picture something.
Photo
play.
A photo play. So it's not a movie. So that's okay. Here's my review. It's not a movie. It's a photo play, and it's not a photo play about cars or men or women or anything else. This is a superhero photo play. This is a superhero movie, and the superhero is Vin Diesel. And anyone coming in expecting anything else will have a great time and then leave thinking, oh, that was something different, but I've still enjoyed it.
It was very enjoyable. This was sort of like a soft reboot for the franchise, I guess, because they don't really acknowledge that the second movie happened in any way.
Really?
I mean, not really.
Yeah, they don't, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no mention of Tyrese. There's no mention of the fact that, like, he went to Florida, and at the end of that, he seemingly was not going to become a police again.
I hate to be a police, he said.
But yeah, that's...
Did they acknowledge the events of Tokyo Drift at all? I know there was a slight wink at it, but I'm not sure of the timeline between these. It's been a while since I've watched not only a Fast and Furious film, but a movie with Vin Diesel in it in general. So
That's a shame.
I think it's also... yeah, it's been a while. The timeline gets kind of confusing from here. Well, not confusing. They retconned where Tokyo Drift takes place to bring back Han, who is very popular, I guess, with fans.
Nice.
And that's about it.
Actually, we're talking about the comparison between the movies. Sorry to interrupt, Ant. I would like to point out, because I believed last week that Tokyo Drift performed quite well, but in fact, Tokyo Drift made a little bit less than half as much as Too Fast, Too Furious, and it made almost exactly half as much as Fast and Furious. So again, we should point out the naming scheme. The first one was The Fast and the Furious, then Too Fast, Too Furious, then The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and now it's Fast and Furious, which is upsetting, but it's what it is.
Yeah, easily this is the worst named movie, just because of how confusing it is and how every time you have to talk about it with somebody, you have to emphasize the thes in The Fast and the Furious to make sure they know which one you're talking about.
So this movie, the fourth one in the series, made more than twice as much as the previous one. It looks like The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift actually performed the worst of all the movies by quite a bit.
Yeah, from what I heard, that was the thing that kind of kept the franchise going. But I think they were already making a deal with Vin to come back at that point, like fully.
Yeah.
Instead of just a cameo. But
I think that's why the movie did so well. It's because it focuses on hero man Vin Diesel.
Now we're back to our Lord and Savior Vin.
So this is the first one that Vin is actually the main character. In the other movies, it's been Brian, and in Tokyo Drift, it was Sean, the 30-year-old high schooler.
Yeah.
But this is the first time Vin is he is the main character of the movie.
Center stage, baby.
My first note about this film is title : Fast and Furious. So I'm really glad you guys clarified that.
Yeah, it's extremely confusing, and it's never going to be not that.
It's been a nightmare
Holy
for people
Jesus.
who have to make a podcast about it.
Oh my god. Well, okay, so here's a point. I'm looking at the wiki. The budget for this movie is $85 million. And that is exactly the same budget as Tokyo Drift. And it made twice as much. Big nice. I am looking at the total budget for all of the Fast and Furious movies, and I'm looking at the total worldwide box office gross.
Yeah.
What do you boys think for the whole series the total box office gross income is in American dollars? For the whole Fast and Furious series.
How many? So there are 9 films, right?
1, 2, 3, 4,
There's
5,
10
6,
now.
7, 8, 9, 10. Because spin-off films includes Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh, yes, okay.
So,
And
for all 10
would
films.
you like to go first?
Yeah, go on, Ant.
So, you want to know what I think the budget was, or
what the total box office of the movie
Box office gross. The total box office gross for all of the movies added up.
Oh, it has to be. There's 10 films.
Mhm.
Surely it's I have no idea how much the first films grossed. But I guess, judging from you talking about it now, Too Fast, Too Furious and Tokyo Drift performed. But then again, the later films are going to have more. So is it going to be more than $1 billion? It has to be, right? It's going to be, I'm going to say $2.5 billion for the whole franchise.
$2.5 billion from Cian there.
The whole
Alright.
franchise gross box
Yeah.
office.
All right, Luke. Jess.
It's 5 or 6 billion, isn't it, at this point?
Wow. So the actual figure is 6.4 billion.
Incredible.
So Luke he's nailed it.
I knew the budget would have gone up extremely recently for the newer films. They would have much more money to play with. I didn't realize it was that much more.
Yeah, so why don't you so the total gross worldwide is 6.4 billion. Why don't you guess what the total budget is?
I would say 700 million or something.
I was going to say
Okay.
900 million.
Ooh, it's 1-for-1. Cian's got you because it's 1.4 billion.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's hard to tell with the later movies because
So, I will point out, you are correct, Cian, for sure. So the first movie had a budget of 38 million. The last two, Fast and Furious and Tokyo Drift, both had 85, and the most recent ones have 200 million to 250 million. So it's loads. Okay, how about this one? This is going to be the decider because you got 1 point each at the moment. I am going to ask you what the worldwide gross box office figure is for it's just called Furious 7. The name of the film is Furious 7. Worldwide box office gross. We'll go to Jess. No, we'll go to Ant first.
Okay. God, I'm trying to remember even which film is Furious 7.
I honestly,
could not tell
I've never
you-
even heard of it. Never even heard of it.
Could not tell you anything about Furious 7. The box office for Furious 7. We'll say, I don't know, 600 million.
600 million for Furious 7. Okay, Luke. I mean, Jess. Gotta
it's
stop
like
doing that.
it's like 1.4 billion or something.
Jesus Christ. It's 1.5 billion.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's the one that made the most so far.
Yeah, it sure
I
did.
think the one after it made like just over 1 billion.
1.2, yeah.
Yeah, and
So I guess what I'm trying to get, because this is shitty podcasting, but what I'm trying to get across here is these movies make so much money. There's so much money. You could send a Jeff to space for this. You know, that's how much money it is. I guess could you send a Jeff to space multiple times for $6.4 billion?
wasn't like using the space shuttle once like 72 million or something.
Oh, you could send so many Jeffs to space with this franchise.
Excited for the 7th film.
Yeah,
With-
right.
with-
It's gotta be
with all-
good.
With all of its dollary dues.
Luke, did you like my my summary that I gave, where I said that it wasn't a movie, it was a photo play, and that it wasn't a car movie, it was a superhero movie?
It's a superhero movie. Yes, I enjoyed your summary.
Thanks.
So I think we all enjoyed it. Me and you, Deji, certainly. Ant, how did you feel?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very fun movie.
It was. It's been like a very long time since I've seen this specific one, so I can't say I had too many memories of it. But yeah, it was a nice surprise, especially after like what a letdown Tokyo Drift was.
Tokyo Drift made me actually sad in real life.
Yeah, there was a cohesive and comprehensive plot in this movie that is not in Tokyo Drift.
Is there any point in this movie where we thought this plot makes absolutely no sense?
I don't
Like
think so.
at this part of the plot?
I don't think so.
There's a couple of big convenient coincidences, I think.
Yeah, but that's
But-
every movie. That's every.
but that's
movie.
every
that's-
single
that's
piece of
every
media,
film
yeah.
and lots of, that's just
Like I
cinema,
watched
I think.
I watched Zootopia yesterday, and the entire plot, the main character doesn't die like 2 times because of like complete unbelievable random chance. Like it, the story is not remarkable because of what happens. The story is only remarkable because the main character didn't die on this 1 or 2 occasions.
Same-
And so that it took me out of it.
The same could be said here, except I guess in hindsight we now know that Vin doesn't die because he's a superhero.
Because he can't die.
This is where the Fast and the Furious movies start giving its main characters superpowers. Basically, I don't know. It's you see them do things, and you're just like, if I ever tried to do that, no matter how hard I trained for it, I would probably die.
I'd be turned to person jelly.
They start to introducing this very early on as well, as I'm sure we'll get to. We'll talk about each of these in detail. But several times in my notes, I have written Vin what in all caps, followed by a series of question marks.
How?
So we start out, and the movie tells us that we're in the Dominican Republic, and supposedly this is 5 years after the events of the first movie. So quite a lot of time has passed between Brian and Dom's last meeting and when Vin got his free car to escape and become a fugitive for stealing DVD players.
Worth it.
But this time, Michelle Rodriguez is with him, and they're driving along in a car, and they have two big pickup trucks behind them, and they're following a truck towing about 6 or 7 tankers, presumably with fuel in them. Michelle Rodriguez calls Vin Bubba, and then gets out of the car and jumps onto the big truck. And it's very clear that they've gone back to their stealing ways and are pulling a heist on this truck.
They're back at the crimes. I
Back
didn't
at the
realize
crimes,
it had been
yeah.
5 years afterwards. So that wasn't specified in the movie, was it? That I presume you've just.
I think there's like a throwaway line when we meet Brian again, but I think there's a throwaway line when they're like, "Oh, 5 years ago, Vin Diesel escaped because of you, and now here we are." But they're not. It doesn't do like it's 5 years later from a flashback in a mirror.
Mm. So
Which-
presumably
or
in
Jess,
the 5
sorry.
years they've been stealing more DVD players.
Gotta be. So Jess, the transcription thinks that you're talking at the moment, so I'll keep it going. I want. Oh no, never mind. It switched to me. I was gonna say I want to put peanut butter in my ears and then go for a swim, but anyway, it's to protect you from the water, is why. Would you believe that during that opening part of the movie, I thought it was in the past. I thought it was before the events of the other ones, because I'm not very clever, and I was like, is this supposed to be their, because it was a less high-tech heist, and I was wondering if it was supposed to be the origins of their truck heisting. But I guess your thing makes more sense.
This is a much more significant heist than their other heists, though.
It is.
Clearly.
Wait, no, hold on, because so can I describe the heist?
Yeah.
So they come up behind the truck with 4 trailers all filled with oil, and the idea is that they have several cars, and that one car rolls up behind the truck, and they like slap a big hook down, and they have to be extremely accurate so the hook hits the hitch on the back of the trailer on the big truck, and then Letty disconnects that trailer of the 4, and then that car starts to slow down until they stop, and then they can drive away with the big trailer full of oil. And they want to do that 3 times.
Yeah, and Letty is using liquid nitrogen to like break the brackets on the connecting the trailers so that they can be freed.
Yeah. And then while this was happening, and it seemed very difficult, we were wondering why they didn't just go in the cabin.
Yeah,
And I guess it's because of the shotgun incident.
yeah, probably that. I mean, they're probably a bit more cautious from this point on. But compared to the other truck drivers we've seen being heisted so far, the one in the Dominican Republic seems a lot more aggressive. Even if he does have an iguana in the front of the cab, who he feeds some of his burrito to, and then says, "Hey, you greedy bitch," to the iguana.
I did like the iguana in the truck.
Was it one? Interestingly, that's also one of the few subtitles in the film for another language.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, there are some moments in the movie where it does give you the actual subtitles, and then others it will just be like the closed captions will say
Speaking Spanish.
speaking Spanish, yeah, or something like that. But anyway, so you were saying that the pickup trucks are attaching themselves to like the back of the trailers, and Letty is detaching the trailers so that they can steal like 2 at a time. What did you find? You found something interesting and confusing about this scene, Deji.
I can't remember.
Who was driving the first pickup truck?
Vin?
So
No,
Han's driving the first
it was
one, isn't
Han.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, Hannah. Wait. Oh yeah. Wait. Yeah. That's so ridiculous that I forgot about it again. Why is he driving the truck? Maybe that's why I thought it was the past.
So, yeah, this is the point where Han is shown to us that he's fine. Even though in the last movie we did see him die very suddenly.
In the movie immediately previous to this one, there was a really big deal made of the fact that we see him die in a fire.
One of the central plot points of the movie, in fact, one of the only plot points of the movie, is that he dies in a fire. But here he's back and he's fine.
I blanked that from my listening of the third episode. I don't remember Han dying in a fire.
Oh,
I guess
he
I
does,
didn't
yeah.
watch. I guess I didn't watch the movies. I just listened to
No.
you talk about the movies. But
Yeah.
interesting
at
move for
that
them to
point.
kill off fan favorite character immediately. I
And
was
And then
also
bring him back immediately.
and then bring
Just
him back
Never
immediately.
mind. We found
yeah, undo
Well,
that.
they didn't know he was the fan favorite when they first released it.
That is very true. I was also
Yeah.
confused about the. I also thought this was in the past, like based off of the start of the film, without having the context of Han dying in the last film as like one of the final scenes.
Hmm.
And there is a
Did forget
nod.
that happened, yeah.
There is a nod at Tokyo Drift, I guess, later on. It's a scene after this. And I was like, oh, I guess this must be in the past. But instead, they have just changed when the events of Tokyo Drift happen.
Yeah, which will cause an issue as we go later into the series when you consider the technology that you see in Tokyo Drift compared to even what's in this movie. It's
Yeah.
because everyone in Tokyo is apparently using flip phones in Tokyo Drift, but you know, from I'd say like Fast 5 onwards, everyone will be using smartphones at least.
Huh.
But anyway, back to our summary. The truck driver doesn't notice the first 2 trailers being taken away.
Yeah, so Han does a ridiculous, like, reverse J-turn, presumably at, like, 40 or 50 miles an hour
Mhm.
following this truck.
Because he's
And
good at
then-
driving. Yeah.
Because he's brilliant at driving, and then is in reverse at 50 miles an hour. And then Michelle Rodriguez freezes the trailer latch and knocks off not 1 but 2 tanks full of fuel, and then Han is reversing with 2 tanks of fuel attached to his truck at 50 miles an hour and isn't immediately killed.
Somehow he isn't again killed.
So then the other truck pulls up, and here we have, I guess, the musical guests for this movie. So the first one we had Ja Rule, second one we had Ludacris, third one we had Lil Bow Wow, and this one time we have Don Omar and Tego Calderon, who I think are in like the short film that's meant to set up the events of this heist called Los Bandoleros that we couldn't watch because it's not anywhere.
Yes, and I did want to see that because I read the summary. Can we read the plot summary of it, maybe?
The plot summary of Los Bandoleros is Tego Leo, who I suppose is played by Tego Calderon, is imprisoned in the Dominican Republic and engages in a debate with other prisoners regarding corporations holding back the electric car and starting wars for oil. Rico Santos, meanwhile, encounters difficulty in locating gas in order to get home on time for dinner. Han
Yeah.
Louis
Two
later
very-
arrives and is collected from the airport by Kara and Malo. They drive him back to Rico's house where his aunt Rubia is struggling to keep up with her gas bills. Han goes outside to see Dominic Toretto working on his car before they both go inside to enjoy a meal with the entire family. Dom discusses breaking Tego out of prison and stealing oil to support the family. Dom, Kara, and Han later head to the nightclub to meet a corrupt local politician, Elvis, who is able to arrange for the robbery to take place on a highway the following morning. After managing to break Leo out of prison and finalizing the plan with Rico, Dom is surprised by the arrival of Letty Ortiz. The two drive together to a beach and rekindle their romance.
So this is between.
Yeah, this is like... They must be like the same day, pretty much.
As the end of the last movie?
At the beginning of this, at the start
Yeah.
of this movie, because they say that the heist is taking place the following morning.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Unless it's not the first. That's the first heist they do, and this is a later one.
On Wikipedia, it says a very short summary for this, which is just Dom is a wanted fugitive in the Dominican Republic. He reunites with Letty and other associates to plan a hijacking of gasoline shipment to help an impoverished neighborhood. Was that the point of the heist? To help an impoverished neighborhood?
That did not seem like the point of the heist.
It seemed like they just wanted big money, right?
It seemed like they wanted to give fuel to street racers, and that was it.
Yeah. Because I read that summary, help an impoverished neighborhood, and I was like, oh shit, maybe this really endears the characters to us. But then in the actual movie, it just seems like we want fuel for street race. Nice.
Yeah, I would have
Okay.
liked to have seen some of the prep for the heist, I guess, in this film, or context for the heist in this film. The opening is like very exciting, very high octane, and it is enjoyable to watch. But it would have done much more, I guess, for the plot, much more flushed out if they had context for it. Also, the transcript has interpreted Rico's aunt struggling with her gospels as Rico's aunt is struggling with her gospels.
Maybe she is struggling with her gospels.
She's losing her faith because of all of this going on.
Possibly
Vin,
another deep plotline to follow, you know?
Vin, we know, is a man of faith.
He is.
So, clearly he's there to help her find it again.
By heisting a road train of 8 fuel tankers or something.
Guys.
This is what Jesus would have wanted.
he's really a Robin Hood, stealing from the bitch and giving to the poor.
So anyway, during the heist, many people will definitely be wondering what Vin is doing. He's gone in front of the truck and is kind of swerving in front of it to try and keep it at a manageable speed.
Yeah.
And somehow the driver also does not think this is odd. It's only when he looks back in like his wing mirrors and sees Letty walking along the tops of the trailers that he finally decides, now I should take action.
And also 2 of the trailers are missing, because Han just
Yeah.
sort of sneaks away with the first 2 without any real problem. And the truck driver is just swearing at Vin.
Get out of my way.
But it's in a different language, so I guess...
We have no idea.
The truck driver also has an iguana hood ornament, because I guess he really loves iguanas. Or just his specific one.
They're trying to flesh out the character a little bit. Like, what's this guy's deal? Burrito iguanas. And that's all.
He's also reading a magazine while driving, so maybe he's
So
not
maybe
the
he
most
deserves to
responsible
lose his
driver.
oil.
So yeah, slightly distracted driving, reading his magazine, and feeding the iguana burritos.
The truck driver starts swerving to try and knock Letty off, and this also disrupts the people still trying to steal at the back of in the other pickup truck.
I'm stealing back here.
Yeah. He also takes out a gun and tries to shoot Vin. And it looks like it should hit Vin. It breaks his side window. And looks like it should definitely have hit him. But I think this is the first time we've seen that Vin is basically impervious to bullets from now on.
Well, there is one time later where he encounters a bullet and it is completely inconsequential. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So Vin drives back to the pickup truck boys and says, "Hey, get out of here. It's not worth it anymore." He tries to save. He's going to try and save Letty, who is now like hanging on to the back of the one of the oil tankers. And it's this point where we get a shot of a big hill that's just going downwards, And for
a
some,
ridiculous. It's a ridiculous hill. It's literally like the truck was on a mountain and he's about to go down it. And I cannot imagine that any truck which weighs as much as that truck does, with its 4 tanks of oil on the back, that cannot go down that hill, because no matter what brakes you have on it, by trying to pull them on the way down, they would be completely torn to shreds, and like they would overheat and everything, and you'd just be completely fucked. There's no way a truck could go down that.
Yeah, also, which we'll see later, there's a corner at the end of the hill.
Yeah, yeah.
And that becomes important in a second. But yeah, trucks with this many trailers should not be going. Like, it is it is a completely ridiculous hill.
It's like 30 degrees or something.
Yeah, it's such a massive hill, and they wait for some reason. Vin and the gang wait until he says, "Oh, guys, we have 4 kilometers until the big hill." It says 4K until the big hill, says Vin, and then pulls in front of the truck to like try and slow him down and make it easier for the guys to take it. But why have they given themselves such a short time window to try and do this truck heist that requires lots of driving skill and incredible accuracy with like trailer hooking bits?
also, why is the truck driver so surprised to see the hill? It's his truck
Oh
route.
yeah,
Like he's
I
like,
forgot about that.
there doesn't seem to be any like exits off the road he's taking, so he should know that there is a big hill at the
No, he's
along
supposed
the
to go over
route
the
he's
hill.
traveling. Yeah,
Because the lads are saying there's 4 kilometers until the hill that the man will go down.
anyway, I forgot what we were talking about. Yeah, they're going down the hill. Vin wants Letty to once again freeze like the shackle connecting 2 more of the trailers to the truck while it's going down the hill. But Letty, of course, is saying that she has nothing with which to hit the frozen shackle.
Because she loses her hammer, I think.
Yeah, during the swerving, she falls off the top of the trailers and grabs onto a ladder at the back, and her hammer is lost.
Her hammer go away.
But this is no problem for Vin, of course, who does a handbrake turn
Oh
of his car into the side of the oil tanker and just detaches the back 2 trailers, and then very easily goes into a full reverse at the exact same
impressive.
yeah, and is then like, "Oh, I'll catch you now, Letty," and it's just so easy for him to do it.
It's so like when all that stuff started happening, I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I very quickly thought, no, this is great. And I'm already feeling this is a superhero movie. Vin's not a human being. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Lots
And we're
of
just
hero,
here. We're just here along for the ride. We're just gonna watch.
Lots of hero vibes from Vin already with his incredible feats.
So Letty jumps to Vin's car, and she gets into the passenger seat also quite easily for a car that is reversing backwards at some speed. The truck driver decides it's no longer worth it and takes his iguana and jumps from his truck into
Almost
like a
certainly
ditch.
killing the iguana.
He does land on the iguana.
And also maybe himself.
Yeah. You can't just jump out of a truck like that.
Yeah, so, and this causes 2 of the trailers to kind of do a big detach and start flipping along the road. So on one end, the road is blocked by the overturned truck that the driver is no longer in, and on the other, it's the flipping oil tanker coming towards them.
I feel like we should stress the drama of this moment. It's literally like the man jumps out, the truck does a big flip and spin, and everything is going crazy and like barreling down the.
It's all on fire. Everything's
it's all
on
fire. The situation is truck is on the road on its side blocking, and then Vin is in the car with Letty, just behind that. And then on the other side of them, in the direction that they want to travel now, which is away from the hill, there is a big oil tank careening down the road in flips and spins.
And he is as calm as you can possibly be in this situation.
His face doesn't move a fucking inch.
Yeah, Michelle Rodriguez is quite concerned about the situation.
Because she's a human being, potentially.
Yeah. But Vin is just waiting there for the perfect moment. He puts the car in gear, spins up the back wheels, and then just absolutely sends it up the hill. And so, like perfectly under the...
it's so close as well.
The
it's
trailer,
really
like, rolling just over it. There's, like, no margin for error, and he just so casually does it that you're just
But Luke, so the big thing is rolling down the hill, right?
Yeah.
And
it's also on fire.
And it's made of a material. Yeah, it's on fire, and it's made of a material which crumples. Meaning that I think that you would be hard pressed to even find a really advanced computer simulation of that situation in which you could find an appropriate time to go under it, right? Because the thing can crumple, and there's a bunch of I think there's probably a bit of chaos involved there. So it would be so hard to know at what time you should be underneath it, and never mind the calculation of how fast should I be going and when should I accelerate, all that shit. So at this point, I think I screamed a little bit because it was no longer a question anymore. This is a superhero. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, essentially. But it's Vin, and it's only Vin.
Yeah, we do see him use his supercomputer brain to figure out some other stuff later. But we haven't reached that point yet. So he drives under the trailer, rolling
he drifts
towards
under
him.
it. He slides the car under it sideways up the hill, while it's bouncing down the hill and exploding, but somehow maintaining enough structural integrity to bounce, even though it's on fire and exploding.
And hollow.
There's a lot going on.
And Vin is completely unfazed by this.
Wait, hold on. I've just
clearly
realized...
not a situation he's scared by. He's very familiar with stuff like this.
He's basically emotionless, and then he just smirks at the trailer.
It's not even an origin story for Vin and his newfound powers. It's just Vin has these abilities, and we must accept it for the rest of the film.
I forgot about this. Even more difficult for guessing what it will be doing at what time. It's filled with liquid. It's filled with a viscous liquid. And it's notoriously hard because you'd have to put in the hydrodynamics of everything as well. It's so hard. But he just is so confident that he knows exactly what to do. It's mind-boggling.
It is hard not to just believe he can do anything at this point.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm glad that we hypothesized in an earlier episode that Vin might have superpowers, and we thought at the time that it was just his extreme form of empathy that lets everybody experience life from his point of view in some way. But no, it goes further than that. He's there's nothing he can't do. I would love to see a Batman versus Vin, or a Superman versus Vin situation. Because with Batman versus Superman, it was I have the technology and I'll get you. But with Vin, it would just be he would be so confident. He would just smirk at Superman and do a sweet drift and kill him.
Yeah, he'd call him a buster.
I'm glad you bring up Finn's confidence and charisma, just because he's completely unfazed and giving the trailer the witty smirk. But do you reckon the source of his powers is this confidence and charisma and charm? Because we've been deprived of Vin for the last films, which I haven't seen, but I've heard you talk about it. And I mean, what an entrance back into the franchise.
I know. The first... Oh, Jesus, yeah, go on.
He's really setting the stage for what's to come. This is far from, the craziest thing that will happen in the rest of the franchise.
Yeah, that's what I'm so excited about, is because I know... Now that I've just accepted... in the previous movies, there was stupid stuff and there was no real explanation. But there is a consistent explanation for all of the things that happened with Vin, and that is that he is a superhero. And so I'm excited to go into the next movies with that perspective, because I think I'll just be delighted by all of their cool CGI and shit. And big
as
stunts.
we've learned, their budgets get increasingly
Generous.
large. Yeah.
increasingly large and generous. So really, to set the bar high this early, I mean, I'm excited to see where they take it.
Yeah,
And
I'm
even
very
throughout the
happy.
film, it does ramp up as well. Even
Yeah, right.
through the course of this film, it gets better.
And some of the later movies have more than double the what's it called?
Budget.
The budget. We just said it as well. The later movies have more than double the budget of this, and this one is already pretty good. It's already like the stunts are big and impressive and over the top. So I'm so hype. I throughout this entire experience, never have I been so hype.
Mm-hmm. So that's the end of the heist. They've, I guess, successfully taken 4 trailers.
Sorry,
I'm still not even sure that they get away. Han gets away with the first 2. Easy squeezy, no problem. I don't know if they get rid of I don't know, because Vin goes back and tells the other guys, hey, stop, it's not worth it anymore. And they seem determined to try and do it anyway, and they hook on against his wishes. And Michelle is still up there. And then Vin goes up and tells her to freeze it, and does his ridiculous 180 handbrake turn into reverse to free the trailers. So do they escape with those 2?
I think they do, yeah.
Because we have trailers coming down the hill later on, when the truck driver is surprised by the hill and also the corner at the bottom of the hill.
I mean, there could be like 8 or 9 trailers, and it would still be the exact same outcome.
There were lots of trailers. It's a very exciting story. It's hard to keep track of everything that's going on, to be honest.
And we also thought it was happening in the past when it wasn't.
Yeah. So the aftermath of the heist is that they have a big party after this. Lots of people dancing. You can see the tanker in the background, and then a street race going on. So clearly, it is just for street racing. The fuel.
Midriff Woman is back, by the way, to start.
Yeah.
It's not a race that any of our family participate in. But it's just on in the background. They're looking to kick back with some Corona. And there are street races happening around them, started by Midriff Woman, but they have much more important things on their mind.
So Dom gives the money to Rico and Tego, the 2 guys in the other pickup truck, and then he does give money to Han, but Han is clearly concerned. He's talking about how their garages are being raided by the police or some form of law enforcement who, for some reason, are looking for Vin Diesel. I guess he may have done a lot more heisting since the first movie, but if it's just as a result of the DVD players and TVs, it seems a bit overkill that they're going to that length.
Mm-hmm.
The police do have a disproportionate interest in Vin.
They've been interested in him for a long time.
They have been for a long time. Now that I know the film is taking place 5 years after the first one, we can presume that there have been a bunch of other crimes occurring, I guess, off screen. But otherwise, the police have disproportionate interest in him for a man who stole DVD players and now, very recently, tanks of fuel.
So Vin, tells them that it's happening because of him, and he's like, maybe we should part ways now so that you're not caught up in all of this business.
I do so much crime, Letty, and you will be.
No, this is just a Han.
This is just a Han. You're right.
Yeah, Han is eating during the scene. Classic. But then he mentions maybe I'll go to Tokyo. There's apparently lots of cool stuff there.
He does nod at Tokyo. He says, "I hear there's cool shit going down in Tokyo," or something along those lines. Which cemented for me that this was happening in the past, but not for the reasons we thought.
So what it actually does is just change when Tokyo Drift happened. It doesn't fit into the timeline. It just changes the thing.
Yeah. He does then go to talk to Letty, who is sitting on the beach. And I have to say, Vin is really rocking a classic tank top and white pants combo here.
Oh yeah, the white pants. Fashion review.
It's such a clean look. He doesn't quite have he has some stubble on the head. It's not a clean baldness. but definitely a clean look overall.
A clean baldness.
I would not feel that confident wearing white pants like that, and he is just pulling it off effortlessly.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked
And it's
about
not-
it a couple of times, I think.
It's because he wears them like throughout the movie, and is just looks great the entire time.
Styling.
So they talk for a while, and Vin is like, maybe we should not be around each other anymore because it's not safe for you, Michelle Rodriguez. And she keeps on talking about how their whole thing is ride or die together. So then they have sex.
Which is fair enough, by the way, for Letty. They've been doing crimes together for a decade or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is extremely capable. We do know that
Yeah.
from what she's been doing. Like, she's not exactly a pushover or anything.
She's the one jumping on the fucking oil rig.
Yeah, the men are just sitting fast.
And so she's like an
She's
instrumental.
taking. She's
member of the
already
team.
taking a significant amount of risk, probably the most
Yeah.
out of all of them. But
And also the only person concerned about dying while doing it.
yeah, so they have sex, and then
Nice.
Vin watches her sleep, and then leaves like 2 big piles of money and his necklace of a cross next to her bed, and then just leaves.
Which is, so we didn't talk about this at the time. Dick move. It's really
Very much a
It's
dick
really
move.
not cool.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably the most cowardly thing he could have done. In fairness, like, I mean, he didn't even like have a proper conversation. Like, I know we said we wouldn't, but I am going to leave because it's not fair to you or whatever.
He's like,
Yeah.
we've been together doing these crimes and everything for literally our whole lives. However, I will mention to you this one time, I think we should stop because of how dangerous the crimes are. And you say, no, we always do this, and also I want to continue doing this. And then he goes, okay, fucks her and leaves with a big pile of money beside her.
Yeah, I definitely think Michelle Rodriguez, Letty, comes away from their conversation with, oh, I've convinced him to stay, what with the ride or die and our history, etc. And that's very much not the case. He just leaves in the middle of the night.
He takes away her agency. He takes away her agency over herself, and that she can make. He's going to make the decision to keep doing the crimes. Why can she not do that also?
It's a very anti-family moment from
It
Vin.
is. It is. But in an attempt to be a family thing, he's like, "I'll protect you." But
Yeah,
really,
he's trying to sacrifice himself to save them, but it doesn't really
it doesn't play. Doesn't track.
it doesn't hold water.
But, at the same time, I got where he was coming from. I think it was just a mistake from his character. He is the perfect man, but he doesn't make the perfect decisions.
And if anything, that humanizes him now that we have
yeah.
the superhero context.
We needed to be endeared to him again by seeing him make mistakes, but nothing that would actually cause him harm, because that's impossible.
I think there is a reason why Michelle Rodriguez is only in this movie for like 10 minutes, and I think it's because when she was on like Lost for like the first few seasons, and during that time I think she got arrested for like drink driving or something. I had her license suspended. So I think that led to her not being allowed to be in the movie
No way.
for like the entire thing. Yeah.
Because she
Oh,
can't
wow.
drive?
But
Yeah, I mean,
surely
like,
movie
I
set
think
driving
they
is...
taught her to drive for the movie. Like the very first movie, like they taught her to drive.
No way.
Yeah.
What a first driving lesson.
Yeah, what? Yeah. And Vin does a big spin and a flip, and you're like, okay.
Like, oh, cool. Stunt driving. This will be useful on the road. When
This must be what all driving is. And then she goes out and gets arrested, and she's like, oh,
he
Vin.
gets arrested for doing a handbrake turn, turns barrel rolls through an intersection, and the lights are red.
I don't know if that was the reason why she wasn't in the other movies or why she was in this movie for like so short a time, but.
What do you mean
that
we
was
can't
like-
drink Corona while on the set?
What are you talking about? The police.
So we then cut to a very shaky camera that tells us that we're in downtown Los Angeles as a man jumps through a window onto a neighboring rooftop
Well, before we go, so that was like the intro portion of the movie, right? Let me just say, what an introduction. What an opening. Like, explosive. Han is back from the dead. We then find out later the timing of the previous movie was retconned. Vin, we discover that Vin is a superhero. Letty is left by Vin in a weird move. So many things happen in the relatively short amount of time. There's a guy who really likes iguanas. He was a nice character. Pretty solid intro, even though it was ridiculous. As soon as you accept that Vin is a superhero, it's a real spectacle.
Yeah, compared to the other movies, this is probably the strongest opening.
Yeah.
No, we know that Vin is back.
And ready for more, or something.
He means business, or something.
Yeah. So we cut to Los Angeles, and a man is jumping through a window, and we see Brian in a nice suit chasing a man through a few buildings. There's lots and lots of cuts throughout this scene.
It is, yeah, lots of shaky cam, lots of jump cuts. There is a scene where they're running through the buildings. They go through some windows. Eventually, they get down onto the street, and there is a scene that reminds me of the extended cut of Liam Neeson climbs a fence in Taken 3, because the bad guy, the guy that Brian is chasing, climbs a fence, and it's all very shaky and lots of cuts. And then Brian proceeds to climb the same fence, and it's all very shaky and lots of cuts.
I remember we all watched Liam Neeson climbs a fence extended cut together on the projector in our sitting room.
Oh, what a scene that is!
Yeah,
iconic cinema.
Jesus, it's so good. Yeah, so it also gave me very, like, if anyone remembers, Hardcore Henry vibes. No, but with more cuts. Rooftops and shit. Parkour.
So Brian is chasing him, but we don't know why. Eventually, the man he's chasing gets his hands on a gun, and then Brian pulls out his own gun, and then you're like, oh, he's probably a police again.
Must be the police. That's also why I thought it was the past, is because Brian was the police, and I thought there's no way that he's still the police. I mean, he let a huge fugitive who even the regular police in the place knew by name and face. He just let him go away.
Yeah. So the chase eventually ends up with the bad man having gotten onto a rooftop outside an apartment window, and he's waiting for Brian to come through so that he can do a big shoot on him.
Yeah, he gets out of the window. There's he picks up the gun, runs into a building. There's women screaming. They're climbing the stairs. It's very tense while the guns are out, and Brian's trying to follow. And he gets out of the window and looks around, and he's like, "Oh, I've done a mistake. There is no way to go. It's too far down to jump."
Yeah,
and
he goes very far out to the ledge of the roof he's starting on. About maybe 10 feet at least between him and the window he's just come from.
And he's like, "Oh no, there's no other roofs to jump to. There's no way of me getting down from this ledge. I guess I'll have to shoot the police when he comes through the window after me."
Can't think of a worse solution. It would be just easier to give yourself up.
No, you shoot the police, a cab or something.
Killing a police, that's a great way to not be killed by police in future.
Yeah, if you so I imagine his crime before that was significantly less bad than shooting a police.
But Brian is smart, and so he goes to another room of the apartment, obviously, and jumps through the window directly at the man and tackles him off the building. And I just have to say, what a running leap he must have had to just get through that window, travel the 10 feet between the window and the man, and still have enough momentum to knock him off the roof.
It is incredible that he goes through. Many of the windows in the scene are open, including the one the man has just come through. But the one that Brian tackles his way through to bring this man to the ground, and it's the ground from 4 or 5 stories up because they're on a roof. It is truly incredible. It must be setting some world records there with that long jump headfirst through a window.
Also, were they teasing us with like one of these random family members is about to walk into the window that the man is pointing a gun at? So like, did that happen, or am I imagining that?
There are shots of Brian, like Brian chases the man towards the apartment. There's a screaming woman as the bad man goes past and into her apartment and out the window. And then we see Brian with the woman in the hall, and he's like, "Oh, it's." He doesn't say. I don't think he says anything, but he's.
Yeah, he's clearly trying to like think of what to do next because.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it ends with him tackling him off the roof onto the roof of a car. Which and crumples like fine. Tissue paper. It's just like the roof of this car is made of tin foil, and 2 men have just landed on top of it.
And isn't it funny that he can do that? And just because Vin is in the movie, I didn't even consider that he might be a superhero. I was just like, sure, I can buy that.
He's also going so fast through the window with his running long jump that the man turns to look at him, but he doesn't have enough time to turn, look at him, and then shoot the police who are sprint jump tackling him through a window from 10 feet away off a roof.
Yeah, so it ends with like Brian again with his anger issues shouting at the man and demanding that like he gives him information while pointing a gun at his head.
Brian is so okay. He's not like winded or anything. He's just like
he immediately starts screaming after this ridiculous fall and jump through a window from so far away.
He says the classic cop thing in a movie, which is just, "I want a name."
Oh yeah,
that's the thing he screams at the person, and eventually the man gives it up and says David Park, who organizes something. We're not sure yet. And then we cut to Brian back in the police building, which turns out not to be the regular police building. It's the FBI building, because Brian's had a promotion.
For some fucking reason, Brian is now moved up in the ranks.
Significantly so, I believe. He was presumably some just undercover cop.
He wouldn't even have been an undercover cop. He would have been like a beat cop that they put undercover.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like a uniformed cop that they put undercover, because I think they mention in the first one that like it's his way of getting to be a detective or something.
He's made a lot happen for himself in the 5 years off camera.
While after being a fugitive for probably at least 1 year.
He's come back in business with the FBI of all police. He's now with the big police.
It's those eyes, those dreamy eyes.
And they're all wearing suits and chasing bad guys and tackling them off of buildings, apparently.
Brian has to go explain what happened. But bad news, it's the boss's cheat day and somebody brought in donuts.
I couldn't believe that was a point in the movie. Like, look out, he's angry because somebody brought donuts.
They had to do more than just have stereotypical angry boss man.
Yeah.
To flush it out a little bit, make him angry because he had cheat day yesterday and somebody brought in donuts.
Yeah, I liked that. It builds the universe.
Yeah.
And so he goes in, explains that, you know, he was chasing down a man who knew something about somebody named Braga. And it turns out Braga is like the head of a cartel, and he hires street racers to do drug trafficking, essentially, across the border between Mexico and the US. And this guy, David Park, sets up like street races to kind of find out who's the most talented drivers and recruit them. Yeah, and that's kind of the end of that conversation. There's nothing really else except there's a kind of a weird moment where he's like, David Park, you could shout out the window and 50 of them would answer. And I was like, that's kind of...
It seems a little off-color.
Seems a bit mildly racist about Like,
he says that he could throw a fortune cookie and hit 50 David parts.
Yeah, that's
And then
what, yeah.
and then one and then one of the women in the room. There are two women in this room as well as the three lads.
one of the women is Asian as well, so
Yeah,
she should
and
be incredibly offended.
she corrects him and says that they're Korean, not Chinese. Yeah, it's Korean, not Chinese, and he's like, oh, whatever. Blah.
Yeah, and he basically gives the like, "What's the difference?" response.
Yeah, he goes, it's all the same to me. Which,
yeah, and I was like, that's
bad. Yeah,
okay.
it's bad.
a little iffy. Much more pressing than your boss's donuts on cheat day in terms of office politics.
Yeah,
One of the people is just openly racist.
a big racist to your race, or at least to Asian people in general. Because he's just mixing them up like, who cares? She's like, I care.
So yeah, and then we cut to Panama City, Panama. And I don't think it says this, but I think from when it cuts to LA, it's 3 months after Vin leaves Letty. It says that on the Wikipedia page, but I don't know how true that's meant to be. And Vin is there working on his car, and he gets a phone call on a payphone, which is from Mia. And I have to say, like, Vin's shoulder in this scene, you get like the side view of his body.
Huge.
His shoulder is massive.
It's like another person sitting on the side of his body.
It's like a bowling ball that's just been like shoved into his shoulder, and it's just there.
Oh, he's he is massive, which just furthers the idea that he is something else that isn't human. Because we never really see him working out either.
Yeah, he is such a treat in this scene. He gets all of his exercise from working on cars, I guess, because we never see him work out.
Yep.
And
oh wait, is this the movie where we see his? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We'll get there. His boulder shoulders are important to the plot.
They genuinely play a role. Oh wait, they play a role 2 times actually.
They do, yeah.
Oh my god. All right, go ahead. Luke.
What a specimen.
Mia calls in to tell him that Letty has been murdered. And he is going to go back to LA now. He's going home. He's going home in time for the funeral. He's got perfect timing. And Mia is there, like next to the coffin and at the like actual funeral. And just further away, Brian is kind of standing there, I guess waiting to see if Vin will show up. And then even further away, up on like a hill, Vin is standing and looking down at the funeral.
It's the trope of a person with sunglasses looking at a funeral of a loved one while they're a fugitive, except it's 2 of them at the same time in different places, and one of them looks at the other one. Brian isn't even looking around, and then he turns his head and looks directly at the speck that is Vin in the distance.
Yeah, it's the super empathy. He knows.
Empathy power is like, oh, there's sadness in front of me in this funeral, but also I detect that this oil rig or oil pump up on this hill miles away is also sad, so I look at that for a while, and it's exactly where Vin was standing a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, so not much else happens in this scene. It cuts back to like nighttime at the Toretto house from the first movie, and Mia is like taking out the garbage, and she notices that like the door to the garage is open. And so she goes in to check it out, and Vin has just snuck in under like the watch of what must be like several FBI agents and the police. And Mia is concerned, it's like, you can't be here, the police will find you. And he's like, no.
Yeah. So they're very definitely watching his house, because
they show you the hood of an FBI car like outside the house.
So they are
it.
looking for Vin, and they know that Letty's funeral will probably bring him out. And then, of course, they're at his house. And then she says, the police will see you. The FBI will see you. And he just says, no, they won't. And she goes, okay.
He gives a very gravelly and charming, no, they won't.
he
And
just
that,
walked in.
and that's the end of that. And more importantly, he has done a hard 180 from. Now, I didn't realize how big the time gap was between him leaving Letty and the funeral taking place. But he has done a hard 180 from, oh, I must leave because the police are interested in me and that will cause problems for my street racing friends and family,
Oh yeah.
to I don't care anymore. The police are just not an issue, not
And
not
they're
something to
outside
worry
your
about.
house, and I'm here also.
They're watching the funeral and I was there. They're watching my house and I was there, and it's just not a problem.
They talk for a while, and then Vin notices that like the Dodge Charger, that's like his classic car, is kind of in the garage, kind of being put back together. And Mia tells him, "Oh, Letty was putting it back together because I guess she just knew you would come back."
Super empathy.
Super empathy.
Yeah, from a distance as well, a long one.
Yeah, and literally an entire country away.
Yeah.
And he notices like the cross necklace like hanging from the rear view mirror, and he tells Mia that he wants to see the crime scene. And so we then cut to the FBI meeting and talking about Braga. They just say he's very unknown. They don't know anything about him at all, except that he's a drugs man and that he recruits street racers. And somehow he is worse than Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, they do. They
Did they
do
really
mention
say
that
that?
he
Yeah,
he
they
has
say
moved. Yeah, go on.
they just say like he is the worst like drug trafficker in history. He's worse than Pablo Escobar. We need to find him because I guess not knowing anything else about him, we just know he likes moving lots of drugs.
Yeah, they don't have. They're all annoyed because they don't have a picture of him and know very little about him personally, I guess. But they do mention offhandedly that he has moved more heroin across the US-Mexican border than Pablo Escobar did in a decade. That's just an offhanded comment they make.
Jesus. What a weird what a weird way to set up how bad he is. Like, hey, you know that actual man? That's like that's like if someone was said like, yeah, he's worse than Hitler, for real. It's not quite the same magnitude, but still.
Yeah, so then the conversation turns to like Vin, and everyone's like, he's your old friend that you let go. Maybe you shouldn't be involved in this situation and should just, take the back seat for a while. And he's like, no, it's fine. I won't let him go again.
Wink. He winks at them and he winks at the camera and he does a little dance.
Yeah, and then like his confrontational like work colleague keeps on like bragging about how he's definitely going to catch Vin and not Brian. But Brian tells him, not in your car, you won't. And I was like, wow, great job, Brian.
Nice job, Brian.
You really got him there.
Can we give a name to... Is this the confident work colleague who Brian has a run-in with later?
Yeah, his name is Stasiak in the movie.
Stasiak. Apparently it's Steve Wozniak, according to the transcription. Why don't we give him a name? And it's
FBI agent Steve Wozniak.
It's FBI agent Steve Wozniak. The Woz for short.
Yeah.
So the Woz is being a bitch, and he does a bad car, and that's what we learned there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more of a thing about his driving ability.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. But he does. I mean, he must have a bad car.
So we then cut to Vin and Mia arriving at the crime scene. And I don't think there's any dialogue in this scene at all. It's just Vin walking around, looking at everything.
Oh yeah, he becomes Batman from the Batman games.
He does.
Yeah, and then he bends down, touches some powder on the ground, and then perfectly recreates the crime scene in his brain.
He's in the crime as it happens.
Yeah, it's like Minority Report or something. Yeah. Except it's the past, not the future. And he's just like, he's figured out everything in like 20 seconds.
It's from some dust.
Yeah. And, like, I know it's a movie, but even, like, the silhouette of the man who shoots, like, the overturned car of Letty and causes it to blow up is perfect for the person who eventually we found out does the big kill on Letty.
Yeah. It's his detecting capabilities and his recreation capabilities are, again, completely superhuman. And at the time, I was like, wow, but I'm fine with this. Because he's not one of us.
Yeah, we've accepted that he's a hero from nondescript yellow powder on the ground, and not very much of it. He reconstructs the entire crime scene and then stands in the middle of it and watches it happen. And I don't know, I kind of like the shots of, like, because it's a big car accident. Someone's chasing Letty down the road and she crashes the car. And I do like the shots of, you know, the cars racing down the road and then crashing, and the car, like, is, you know, rolls a couple of times and goes through where Vin is standing. And I do think the scene is nicely done.
Yeah, it's well done. It's just like the context of it is so bizarre.
Yeah, it's very nice to look at, but you know, Vin's superhuman abilities aside.
Yeah, it's not like he read the case file or anything before he got there. He just knows everything. It's like, wow, this powder has illuminated me on literally every aspect of the crime.
And it is his big solid lead for the, I guess, revenge quest that he goes on next.
Yeah. I do agree. It's great.
There was a bit of, like, odd cinematography where when the man shoots, like, the muzzle flash transitions to Vin's face.
Yeah,
which is that meant to be, like, a weird thing of, like, he caused it by sending Letty away.
Oh, storytelling.
Like, he's really the man responsible for her death because he was a coward man who sent her away.
Oh,
he left to protect them, and then she died anyway, or something.
Or that's the reason she died, maybe. Something. If he was
she
there,
died.
he could have protected her.
Oh, the police. He was scared of the police, and they didn't get her. A man did instead, and it was worse.
Oh, all right, Luke, take us in.
So Mia and Vin leave the crime scene and are, like, back in the main part of LA, and they're talking about stuff. Mia asks him what he found, and he says he found nitrometh, and there's only one guy who sells it, and of course Vin knows exactly who that is.
And can we explain to the listeners, but mainly me, what nitrometh is?
Nitrometh is nitromethane. I think it's just like a different type of fuel you use in your car. I think. Like, I mean, it's not very common, obviously, if only one person uses it.
But why does Vin... So later on in the movie, Vin says only pussies use nitrometh. So why would that be the case?
I guess because he thinks the man is a coward and wants to insult him. We were talking about nitromethane. So according to Wikipedia, it's a fuel that's used in motor racing, particularly drag racing. The oxygen content of it apparently makes it able to burn with less atmospheric oxygen than conventional fuels. I guess that means that, like, it would require, say, you know, you use, like, turbochargers and superchargers to cause more induction of air into the engine of a car, and that causes a boost in power. I guess this would also have a similar effect, just not as...
Okay. So I thought that nitrometh was literally like some sort of street fuel that fucks up your engine or something, but in return for more speed.
No, it's an actual fuel.
So Dom just really didn't like the other man when we get to the quote later that nitro fuel is for pussies. Okay.
I also thought it was either some street fuel or, like, NOS alternative that was, you know, scummy and bad for cars. But no, he just doesn't like the other guy.
All right.
Or it's street racing drugs. nos mixed with meth.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that, I would have been like, "Yep, that's about on par for this movie."
It's speed for your car because it makes it go fast.
It's speed. Oh.
So the conversation between Mia and Dom continues, and it's just basically Mia just wants him to let it go and try and move on, but Vin is completely focused on getting revenge on the man who killed Letty, so that's his goal from here on out.
His rage is back.
His rage, yeah. We cut to Brian sitting outside, like, I guess a gas station sort of deal, or like a 7-Eleven, and he's reading over, like, David Park's file, or a David Park's file, because they have to narrow it down.
Yeah, it does show the name David Park like 8 or 9 times.
Yeah,
this,
I guess
short little
because
scene in his car, and we figure out later it's because he was narrowing them down to give to someone else.
Yeah, in the meeting they were having, he was like, "Oh, only like look at David Parks with like speeding violations or specific like traffic laws broken, because he is a street racer also, and thus I guess he would have those show up more often." He is eating a sandwich in this scene.
Crust?
I firmly believe. Oh, Cian, it's a roll, so technically
it's all. Yeah, we did comment
crust.
that it was all crust. If you cut off the crusts, you would be eating nothing.
Yeah, so he has an evolving palate. It's no crusts to all crusts. And I firmly believe it's a tuna sandwich. After seeing Mia again, he's looking for that, nostalgia kick.
The nostalgia of the tuna sandwich.
He's regressing to tuna sandwiches. But all crust this time, so I guess he has grown up with his big boy suit and FBI badge.
So the next day, FBI agent Steve Wozniak brings in Mia to question her about Vin, and Brian sees this while talking to his co-worker, the Asian woman we mentioned, who I felt was kind of treated poorly in that meeting, mainly because her boss is racist.
Seems like a problem, all right. Yep.
Yeah. Not only are they racist, but they just kind of ignore the women. The women are like sat in corners.
Her name is Sophie Trin in the movie. So Brian talks to Sophie and kind of gives her a list of the David Parks he's narrowed it down to, and eventually he tricks FBI agent Steve Wozniak into leaving his interrogation with Mia by telling him he's needed in another area of the building, and then he takes Mia and goes and gets coffee with her,
which is like probably another thing that they could fire him for.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Vin going to meet the man who makes the nitrometh engines, and this guy is just the worst. He says like literally all of the worst things you could possibly do to just piss off Vin.
Can we get some quotes?
I can't remember the specific quotes. It's something like "say hi to your sister for me" and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
jeez.
Yeah, when Vin comes in initially, he's like, "Oh, surprised to see you back here, but it's not your garage anymore. You don't run the show." Because he's been presumably away doing crimes for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's quite disrespectful. And then he goes on to talk about his sister. And it's just...
And then I think he's also disrespectful about Letty.
Yeah.
So this ends with Vin basically picking him up, throwing him onto the hood of a car.
Here we go.
Hitting the pulley system, the crane system behind him, so that an engine falls. A suspended engine falls. And Vin, literally millimeters before it hits this man's head, catches the chain and just effortlessly suspends it above his head. So with
just to repeat,
no strain.
To repeat, Vin puts the man on the bonnet, on the front of a car, underneath an engine on a crane. It's being lifted up by a chain because work is being done. Whatever. He hits a thing so that without looking, so that the engine starts to fall onto the man's head. And then he grabs a chain, unflinching, and the entire engine comes to a stop in midair, just above the man's face.
Yeah, and he is unfazed by this yet again. Like, he is fine. Like, it's a full car engine, and he is not straining at all.
Not a small engine either.
Not a small
These are
engine.
big muscle cars that the man is working on, presumably. Very big engine, as we can see. And the only sign of any strain from Vin is like a slight
He
shake.
seems like more strained by holding the man down than holding the engine up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does like a little arm shake with the chain that's holding the whole engine up off of this man's head and stopping him from being crushed to death. But it's not like it's nowhere near the scale of, I guess, tremors you might have from, lifting something that is way too heavy from you
Wait a
or
minute.
for you.
Wait a minute. If Vin can hold up, so it's millimeters above the man's head, and if he drops it, the man's head will be crushed. Does that mean that Vin has the strength to crush a person's head with one hand? Because he's holding that with one hand, and the amount of force required to stop that is equal to the. Am I off base here? I feel like Vin could crush a person's head with that hand.
I would presume so, because this is such an incredible feat of strength. I don't even think he's doing this, like, he's definitely not doing this movement efficiently.
No, his arm is behind him, fully outstretched.
Yeah, and like, it's a falling engine. It's not like he lowered it down.
Yeah,
it's falling. He stops it.
Yeah, he arrests a falling engine like millimeters from a man's head.
And he's doing this with one hand, by the way. Like, it's not like he lets go of the guy to take care of the engine. He's still holding the guy down with one arm and holding the engine with the other. So he should be in incredible pain from just stopping.
His shoulder should be dislocated by this movement. But luckily, as we've seen before from his tank tops and previous scenes, he doesn't miss any days at the gym. Loves working on them shoulders. They are big and beefy, and they can hold up entire engines, apparently.
So, what I have here is it's probably about 200 kg. So
wow.
the average car's engine weighs about 160 kg. They can go up to 430 or something. But for a muscle car, I mean, it was a bigger engine. It's probably closer to 200, maybe even 250, something like that. And it could be more than that.
And he arrests it from falling.
Yeah,
as well.
As it's falling, he stops it with a chain, one arm outstretched behind him, unflinching, instantly stops.
Even if it's not like proper superhuman strength, it's like Captain America level strength, where it's just like,
yeah, it is.
This is fine for him.
It is.
But so obviously the guy gives up what he knows, which is just that. I think it's that. It's just a green Ford Gran Torino or something. But he directs Dom to David Park, so now Dom and Brian are on a collision course. So we cut to Mia and Brian having coffee.
If it's like a Buick or something, or a Cadillac, it's 300 kilograms. And they go more than that. I'm looking at a chart of like car engine weight by model or whatever. A lot of these are in the 600-pound range. Like any reasonably big car seems to be. Some Chevys have really tiny ones, but like 600 is a pretty common figure, and that's 270 kilograms. That is so much.
If I tried to catch that engine, I'd probably be lifted off the ground.
Yeah, of course. He doesn't weigh 200. Vin would be lifted. He doesn't weigh that much.
Thrown into the ceiling.
There's a good point, actually. If it's just hinged over a pulley system with this chain, a falling engine that weighs 200 and something kilos is at least 3 times as heavy as Vin. 2.5 to 3 times as heavy as Vin. He's a big guy, but still. He would just
go up, and he would be so strong.
Ascend.
He would be so strong that he'd be like a flag off the chain. But he would just go up.
But this might be another power of his. Maybe Vin is like Spider-Man and he can just adhere himself to any surface.
Or maybe he does weigh a lot more than we think because he's extremely dense.
But we cut to Mia and Brian's coffee date. And I think that this is actually the point where Mia tells Brian that it's been like 5 years since they've spoken to each other. Which I guess means it's been 5 years since the first movie. And there's a lot of like back and forth between them. Mostly it's very strained and kind of tense. Brian warns Mia to stay away from Dom because he's just going to cause trouble. And then Mia starts like questioning why Brian went back to the FBI at all. And it kind of ends with her saying, maybe you're not the good guy pretending to be the bad guy. Maybe you're the bad guy pretending to be the good guy.
Can I say, actually, I'm not past the engine thing yet. Because I thought maybe the pulley system is such that, like you could put it up with your hands, but you obviously the trade-off is you need a very long chain, and then you start to pull it, and it goes, it moves up slowly. But if that was the case, then when he catches it, his hand would move a very far distance before it stopped. But the fact that it stops instantly means it doesn't matter what pulley system is there. It could be anything. It doesn't make a difference because he just stops it straight away. So if anyone's trying to fucking email with their engine theories and their pulleys, you shut up.
Everyone emailing the podcast on how engine cranes work. God, we're so uneducated.
Yeah, if you got your engine theories, write us a 1-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, you pussy. Go for it.
Explaining how we don't know anything about engine.
I bet your second name is Spilner, sucks. You loser. Yeah, that's right. The Spilner beef is still here.
And you wear mesh vests.
We got one beef per episode almost.
We haven't started any beefs with Tokyo Drift or this one yet.
Well, no, the beef in this one is mechanics, I guess. That seems like a bad direction to go, though.
So Dom goes off to find David Park, and so does Brian. And eventually, Dom gets there first, walks into the room, and just throws David Park around the room like it's nothing.
Yeah.
At one point, he pushes him into the wall, and the wall just breaks.
It crumbles behind him.
Yeah. I'm surprised, the building didn't shake when he did it.
It's very funny because when Vin enters the room, the guy is sitting on the other side of the room, on his couch, watching TV or something. And Vin kicks open the door. It goes flying almost off the hinges because of his superhuman strength. And then the camera pans from the door to where the man is on the other side of the room, and Vin is instantly there picking him up. So the guy doesn't have a chance to look around or even stand up. He can't react at all. Vin just has him instantly.
And it seems like at this point he's pretty willing to tell Vin everything.
Yeah.
But then Vin's like...
Yeah, he starts to give him as much information as he has, yeah.
And then Vin is like, no, he knows more, so I'll dangle him by his ankle out the window.
He breaks through the window with the man with one arm, and then he's dangling him over the side. Standing up straight, arm fully outstretched in front of him. I think he's got 2 hands on the guy's leg, and he is holding him outside the window. Which I believe, with a 50 kg hammer or something, they do this as a strongman event. But this is a whole dude.
It is he just throw him through the window and then catches his ankle, and the guy swings down like a big pendulum from outside the window and presumably smacks into the building. And that would be incredibly painful on its own.
Nah, he's fine. Vin
but he's all right and is terrified, screaming from dangling outside his own window, held just by strongman Vin.
Yeah, but he's got such strong arms.
Brian shows up just in time to hear the screams of the dangling man and runs up the stairs and sees Vin for the first time. I guess since the first movie, properly sees him. And Vin, without turning around, knows that it's Brian, seemingly. He uses reverse super empathy to see everything from Brian's point of view. And just, I guess, knows it's him. Which, how would you know? How would you know he's back to being a police?
Maybe he keeps tabs
But
on
here
him.
we are. And so there's a lot of, like, Brian telling him to let the man go, and that he'll find the person who killed Letty, and Vin's not having any of that, so he lets go of the man, who catches onto the curtain that's hanging out the window from when he was pushed through it, and Brian helps him up, and Vin must be extraordinarily fast to get out.
He's
of the
absolutely
room.
zooming.
Is held at gunpoint while holding this man out the window by his ankles. Brian comes in and has him at gunpoint. And then instantly, Vin lets go of the man when he decides, oh, it's time to leave, because he knows Brian won't bring him into the cops, as is previously established in the other films. And so he lets go of the man. Brian instantly transitions from the door to the window to catch the man and help him as he's holding onto the curtains, and Vin is just gone.
He does like a Batman exit where someone's like, huh,
Yeah.
and then he's gone.
Yeah, he looks the other way for a second, and then Vin is gone.
It's like that thing in movies where there's somebody across the street and then a
Yeah.
car goes by and they've just disappeared. So Brian brings in David Park, and FBI agent Steve Wozniak is angry from before about Brian helping let Mia go from the interrogation, and pushes him into a wall. And then Brian has like an extreme overreaction and smashes Steve Wozniak's face off the wall, knees him in the stomach, punches him, and then throws him to the ground.
He smashes his face into the wall twice, and then the other things, which is just this ridiculously aggressive overreaction.
It's so brutal. It's like he's trying to end a fight before it starts, but the guy was just kind of like, hey, why'd you let my witness go? And like pushes him out.
He's quite, and we're supposed to think that Steve Wozniak is an asshole here, but he's the only one doing his job.
And his boss was like standing next to him the entire time this was happening. It was like he was just standing just off screen, just staring at this all happen, and then he shows up and is fine with it.
Yeah, his response is ridiculous. He's like, Steve Wozniak, go get yourself cleaned up, and then he's like, but he hit me, like, because he
Brian,
saw.
you need to take it easy, but not bad.
Yeah, he's so
Great technique.
I love that, Brian. You're so handsome. Did I say that out loud?
Special Agent Steve Wozniak is like, oh, he hit me first. In response to the boss saying, go get yourself cleaned up. And he's just like, go get yourself cleaned up. And then he gives Brian a speech about, in front of David Park, who's just kind of standing there looking really awkward.
Yeah, I think he's giving him a speech about Vin, is it?
He's like, he says, do you know the difference between a good police and a bad police?
Or it's the difference between a cop and a criminal.
Yeah, that's it. And he says it's one bad judgment call after
Brian's several bad judgment calls so far in his history.
After seeing Brian brutalize a suspect, attack one of his co-workers, let go of a witness.
In the past, let go of a highly wanted criminal.
and then become a fugitive, only to turn back into the police later on.
And his boss is just there like, you're one bad judgment call away from being a criminal, buddy.
Oh. No, he doesn't even tell him he's one away.
Was a criminal.
He doesn't even tell him he's one away, as if that like means you've used up your other ones. He just says it just takes one, and then Brian's like, evidently not. I'll just do what I want, thank you.
They then cut to a montage of... So Brian finds out that there's going to be a race to determine who's going to be the new driver for the cartel from David Park, and so he goes to Sophie and says, hey, I need a list of like all the cars that are impounded so that I can build a special car for the race. Which, again, can you just do that? Can you just take impounded cars and take them and use them as your own?
No, but Brian can.
He's only one bad judgment call away from being a criminal.
We'll give him a couple of cars. He needs a few, does he? Yeah, I go on.
Yeah, he takes 3 cars. He points out 3 cars, and Sophie's like, "Oh, which one do you want?" And he's like, "I want all of them."
It's very fun actually, because they have two. They're in this like conference room. They have 2 huge monitors, and it's like they're like flashing. They're like the monitors are divided up with little screens with a picture of each car, and they're just sort of like flashing and rotating between all of the cars that they have impounded, which is a number in the thousands, by the way, because he calls out 3 4-digit numbers, I think.
Oh yeah,
Because the pictures are just organized by a number, so he calls out 3 4-digit numbers while looking at hundreds of images of cars all at the same time, and he picks 3 4-digit numbers on these tiny screens for the cars that he wants, based on appearance alone.
Yeah. So they go through a montage of both Brian and Dom making cars for the race. Dom's doing a Chevy Chevelle, I think, or a Camaro, and Brian's making a Skyline. And so there's lots of car stuff going on. Vin drinks a Corona again because he likes Coronas. And eventually we're brought to the race that's meant to happen. And here's where we see that Gal Gadot is in the movie. Cian, do you have any...
No, I'm not happy about it. Because Gal Gadot has some interesting feelings on the Palestinian population
conflict.
I'd say.
Yeah, she regularly chimes in online and makes her feelings public.
She's also the person who had a deal with like Huawei or OnePlus or some shit. I think it was OnePlus or no, Samsung. Yeah. She had a deal with Samsung phones, and she made a tweet about how much she loves her Samsung phone or whatever. And it's sent from my iPhone. Oh, and it was God, so good. But I don't like her in general. Also, I watched Wonder Woman, and I wanted to like Wonder Woman like a lot. I really wanted to like it, and I didn't like it. I thought a lot of it was really poorly done. And so boo gal, don't like you. Stop it, and also get the fuck out of Palestine.
Yep. So that is our opinion on Gal Gadot, I guess.
We can
the official podcast opinion of Gal Gadot.
No, why don't we summarize the official podcast opinion on the Israel-Palestine situation, which is just don't bomb civilians. How about that? That's our official stance. Don't
build
kill civilians.
illegal settlements in another country.
That's our whole thing. It's just just stop killing civilians, please. Step 1. That's the first
don't
thing.
violate international law.
But yeah, we'll get to that later. But first, stop killing civilians. How about that, gal? All right.
Back to the movie. We don't need to have. We don't need to start a feud with Israel.
Yeah.
And our beef for this episode is Israel.
This episode. All right.
Gal Gadot is like, I guess, the organizer of the race in a way. She's kind of taking care of all the drivers, like trying to give them the GPS things that they need for the race. And Brian shows up, and he comes across another driver who's already like won the race and has a GPS, and he's showing it off to like the 3 women that are around him. And the man, Dwight, calls Brian a nutsack.
A very blonde man with an interesting accent who refers to himself in the third person. He is Dwight.
Yeah,
he is a massive wang.
He sucks.
He sucks. Yeah, he sucks so much.
And we learn later on that he sucks toes.
He does suck toes, and he likes to record
He
as
does
well.
suck toes. So they go up to like sort of a balcony sort of situation, because I guess it's at a driving range, and there's a man playing golf. He is Campos. He's like the guy who's we're led to believe is below Braga on sort of the hierarchy. He's like his man on the ground. And then you also have Phoenix, who is played by...
We should note, while you're looking that up, we should note that...
It's by Laz Alonso, who's like Mother's Milk in The Boys.
Yeah, that's who it is. I forgot about that.
He looks very different. You wouldn't know it's him.
Yeah, he looks significantly less huge, I think. Anyway, an important thing is that Dwight the Wang, he is bragging about the fact that, just to be clear, he got a position on the like Street Racers for Braga thing already, and he's bragging about it.
Which begs the question: why is he there?
Yeah, well, he's just hanging out with the women now.
for Braga's drivers, but he's just there to like feel up the women and show them the weird GPS.
Yeah,
and call Brian a nutsack.
And you're a nutsack also.
Campos starts talking about like the race, and he kind of mentions like, oh, it's not a quarter-mile race. You know, it's a race that needs you to be like adaptable and agile and stuff like that. And Gal Gadot hands out a bunch of GPSs to Vin, Brian, the satyr from Percy Jackson, and the Lightning Thief.
Yeah, I could not see him as anything else for the whole movie.
Grover, and some other guy, because I guess I don't remember if he was in anything. And so, you know, Vin kind of, you know, wants to know what he'll be hauling. He doesn't know that it's drugs yet. But Phoenix, Laz Alonso, is kind of like, you don't need to know. It's just, you know, it's just stuff. Why do you care? Anyway, is this the part where he calls him a pussy for using nitrometh, or is that
no? This is later on when he figures out who owns the
during
car.
the confront.
But at this point, he just says, "I think, a good driver always knows what's in his car." And then there's a very long shot of Gal Gadot being like, "Oh, Vin is so hot.
Look how hot
Vin
he
is
is.
so handsome." That is like the weirdest part of this movie to me. It's one of the weirdest parts, like how into him she is.
Wouldn't you be?
Like, I mean, she's around him for like 5 minutes total.
Instant attraction.
Yeah, she meets him for the first time, and he says one comment about good drivers knowing what's in their car, and she's like, "Oh, I must have him."
So the race
But
starts.
we should say in this one, women are treated much better than in the other ones. There's the odd weirdness, but in this one, they're actual characters.
Yeah, as a disclaimer, much better on the objectifying women.
Like things are looking up as I was
overall.
hoping for. I think that also contributed to how much I like this one. Is I was like, only a couple of times did I feel like women were objects here, and it's just like this we're moving in the right direction. I have a feeling in the next one it's going to get better again. We're just going to have actual characters representing the real human beings that are in the real world, and that's nice.
So interestingly enough, Jordana Brewster really doesn't like this movie out of all the Fast movies. Why? She felt like she didn't really have a role.
Oh, absolutely not.
In it
No,
at all.
yeah.
As like she was just a talking head who was there to motivate them.
No, she was worse. She was just a thing that was there to cry and be sad and be concerned, and then have sex while sad, and then that was it. And then at the end of the movie, she shows up again, and we'll talk about that. But like, she really she does nothing, and then she has sex and is sad, and then at the end, she's like, maybe in the next one I'll do something. Is what the final scene says.
Yeah,
Good news though, she does very, very much like the next one, Fast 5.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which I think is kind of like indisputably the best.
Because Jordana Brewster, she's like an action actress, right? I believe that she wasn't really being used correctly there.
I liked her in the first movie. She actually had some arc to it and some like actual fleshed out character. In this, she's just there for like 5 minutes, and she's there as somebody for Vin and Brian to talk to when there's nobody else around.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, it's
that's
it's a shame that like because I do wish, even though she's not in the movie very much at all, the fact that she's just there to talk to the men, be sad, and have sex is really not great for the film. And it was looking so good on the women front in terms of like, oh yeah, this might actually have like female characters. They might be real people and not just like weird sex objects for the men. Um,
I guess the only thing we can say is one step at a time
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
the trend line is good. There's much less of it here.
They've improved on like overall objectification of women, but they still need to improve on making women like actual characters that exist in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the strong, the big female characters, like Michelle Rodriguez is in the movie for 5 minutes. She's also in the movie for 5 minutes. Mia, it's like, you know, and then Gal Gadot is also in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and
she has more screen time, I think, than the other two, but her purpose is no different. It's just like weirdly intervene for no reason, and it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, that is worth noting. Is Letty is into Dom, so Letty has her own stuff to do and all that stuff, but she is with Dom, so she's in a relationship there with one of the main two characters, which is Dom and Brian. Gal Gadot is also into Vin, so that's, you know, again, she's not really independent there. And then Mia is also she's the third main female character, and she's into Brian. And so so far, except for the woman Sophie, except for her, there aren't really many women that are independent of the male relationships. But I think I can see that getting better, so I'm happy enough.
Yeah. Also, this movie definitely doesn't pass the Bechdel test at all.
No.
Do you think that killing off Letty is like fridging her? If you know what fridging
I can't
is.
remember. I heard what this was recently, but I can't remember.
Fridging is a thing. It's usually in comic books where like they kill off a woman who's important to one of the men in the stories to motivate them or to elicit some emotional response.
Yeah, it couldn't be more that. Yeah, it's
like that's another strike against it. Like, but like I mean, you kind of wish that like there was some like standout female character in these movies that you could say she is a person who, when the camera is not on them, their lives would seemingly continue independent of the men. But I can't say that about Mia in this movie.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of potential for Letty, Mia, and Gal Gadot's character. They all could have been written so much better.
I did feel like Sophie's life
just
continued though. Sophie seemed to have things going on.
That's true.
She was getting things done at the FBI. You have to admit, like, she was way more competent than FBI agent Steve Wozniak.
Except the one time when she was like, so I have a list of guys here, and I think, was it all the David Parks or something like that? And she was like, this one has no violations, this one has no violations, this one has, like, I don't know, a parking ticket or something, and then this one has been arrested for street racing 4 times or something, and then she moves on as if that isn't obviously the guy.
It is clear that she's new to the office though, right? She does say that at one point.
I think it's kind of made, like, there's kind of like an indication that she is new to the FBI, like she's kind of under the wing of Brian.
She says that she's a newbie at one point in a meeting, I think. So it's strange that she has much more character than any of the other female leads, I guess. Well, they're not really they're not leads here, but
I can't believe we've been distracted from the racing for women.
Yeah, can we talk about the only race in the movie now?
for caring about women and wanting them to have better representation in movies.
Yeah, we need to shut up, actually.
But yeah, the race begins. There's a countdown on the very fancy sat-nav that for some reason has, like, women on it as it gets closer to one.
Just as we wrap up talking about...
So this is the one part in the movie that
objectification
upset
of
me
women.
because of that,
The race begins. Vin does a wheelie in his car because apparently he can do it in any car at any time.
Good on him.
And Brian kind of does pretty shit at the beginning of the race. He's in last pretty quick.
Did we describe properly what was on the sat-nav, though?
I'm not sure.
It was like the route that the race was meant
So
to
there's the
go
route that the
along.
race is happening on, and then the way they start the race is they flash like 5 or 6 shots of a sexy woman, and then the sat nav says go, and it's really weird. And it's like midriff woman has gone digital and then times 6. It's really weird.
Also,
Yeah.
the models for the cars on the sat nav that they
Yeah.
have, and the 3D models are perfect.
Yeah.
They're perfect for the cars that are being
Including
driven.
modifications and shit. Yeah.
So that they go through the race. It's reasonably interesting.
No
I
streets
guess,
closed
considering
this
it's the only-
time. No streets closed.
Yeah,
You gotta deal with traffic.
And then one of the racers is brutally killed
Yeah, I was waiting
by
for
being
that.
T-boned by a car. Honestly, pretty awful.
There are 2 or 3 like way off tone deaths in this race because there are civilians present. The streets aren't closed. It's a more complex, I guess, point to point from A to B through the city, and it's busy. There's traffic.
And Brian
like,
really
there's
takes that A to B to heart because he doesn't do the race. He does a different race.
He takes like the opposite route that he can, the most different route that he possibly could. Eventually leading up to the point where he's like on a hill that is like parallel to the road that Vin and the satyr are on, and he's like, I'll just go down the hill, the steep hill, and through like like a wooden stairs that exists there for like people to move around more easily. And that's how he gets back in the race. Like, I hate to say it, but Brian cheats in this race.
Yeah, he doesn't do the race. He does a different
Yeah,
race.
he does a completely different race. There is a well-defined route by the weird, sexy sat nav, and he just goes a different way entirely. And then accuses Vin of
He
cheating.
does.
which is
He
very funny.
does. Like people are fucking murdered by the aggressive car driving in this one, and Vin taps the back of his car. We'll get to it, and Brian's like, "You fucking cheated."
Oh yeah, this is... I don't know if you remember Deji, but in the first film, do you remember Brian telling his laptop to shut up when it said not to use NOS 2?
Yeah.
He once again tells his technology to shut up because it annoys him.
Oh, it does. Yeah. He tells the
Yeah, he
sat-nav.
hates his GPS for telling him how far away he is from the finish line. Which I guess prompts him to cheat.
Brian hates technology and crusts. Well, no, I guess he does eat the crusts in this one. Maybe he's grown as a person in that regard, but not this one.
And then the satyr from Percy Jackson is brutally murdered by Vin. As Vin spins him, which causes his car to roll, hit a bunch of other cars, go off of like an overpass, and then land on the roof of the car.
Yeah, so it lands person side down. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely killing the guy inside. And Vin smirks.
Yeah, he's happy. He loves it.
He's like, haha, got him. That's the response Vin has.
Like this,
And we see earlier, I think, the other participant in the race is like brutally T-boned by a truck. And on the driver's side. So he is instantly killed going through an intersection.
The end of the race ends up with like Dom and Brian basically in a straight line race. Dom uses his NOS, and then Brian, kind of as like, I guess, a throwback to the first movie, goes like, "Oh, too early."
whoever uses the NOS last should win, right?
Press the win button last, and then they win.
Brian uses his NOS and gets ahead, but Dom like nudges the back of his car, causing him to spin out, and then says, "Still a buster."
Still a buster.
Yeah. And Brian again has one of his anger moments and hits the steering wheel very hard.
He's upset because he thought he got Vin, but that is physically impossible.
Dom wins the race, gets like his I guess the job in the cartel's drug trafficking car driving group. And at this point we see that Gal Gadot likes Vin, like, you know, she's very into
She
him.
got the hots.
After seeing him for a minute and having him seen him win a race, And I guess that like proves that in these movies that if you win a race, women will like you.
Maybe everyone will like you. Maybe that's the message.
Brian's annoyed and he drives away, and then Dwight calls him a nutsack.
Does he really call him a nutsack?
He calls him a nutsack, and it says, "Oh, muscle will always beat imports," or something.
Wow.
And when Vin is winning the race and receiving his weird sexy sat nav from Gal Gadot, she asks him for his driving license, and he's like, "Haha, what's a driving license?" And we're all like, that's Vin, our hero." And then she asks for his fingerprints, which is kind of weird. And then she also asks for his phone number because
that's just for her, yeah.
And that bit's just for her.
Does that technically count as like sexual harassment in the workplace? Because this is she's like his boss, kind of, or at least boss adjacent.
Yeah, those songs are on our end. But Vin is, I guess, it's technically sexual harassment. I mean, I don't know.
He doesn't look sexually harassed. That's for sure.
He looks fine.
Do cartels have a HR department?
Hi, Gal Gadot asked me for my phone number, and it didn't seem work related. It would be a reasonable thing to do. Let's be honest. Is it? I mean, if your boss asked for your phone number, you would have a moment of like, is this what it is, or is it better than this?
So Brian, clearly annoyed by Dwight calling him a nutsack twice, organizes an FBI raid on his apartment where we see that he has a foot fetish
for an entire sea of women.
As records. Why does he have so many women in his apartment?
He can only suck one set of toes at a time.
Yeah, and he records the women while he does it. So
he has a big video camera, like an old JVC video camera, because I guess that's the era of technology in the film. Although this is aside the weird, sexy sat nav.
Yeah.
That has ridiculously accurate 3D modeling of modified cars. But yeah, he's just there, like, recording his own fetishes.
His own toe suck.
Well, the FBI... Yeah.
Nothing wrong with the toe suck. We should say that. No kink shaming or anything. But the vibe in that room is pretty uncomfortable, and the recording is also
intensely creepy.
It's creepy, yeah. It seems exploitative.
So Brian and the FBI raid the Dwight's apartment. They arrest him, and then Brian just openly plants like drugs in the apartment.
Yeah,
in front of the other FBI agents. And
Dwight is looking at him. He says Dwight would never do meth or something like that. He's referring to himself in the third person. And then Brian's just like, surprise, and puts a big bag of meth on the table. In
front of the whole SWAT
and
team.
A video camera.
The man who is recording himself with the weird foot fetish, and also all of the women who are in the room. He just takes out a bag of meth and puts it on the table.
And he says, trick
on
also,
you.
Oh yeah, so weird.
So next we have Dom going to a party, and he's wearing a nice like pair of white jeans and a nice light blue button up or a nice blue polo shirt.
Very handsome.
He looks great. He looks handsome. He looks like he's having a nice time at the party. Again,
orders a Corona.
Yeah, and then Brian shows up beside him and also gets another Corona as like a thing of like, haha, trick. I've also gotten into this cartel. And then they meet with Campos, and they kind of like talk about what's going to go.
Campos, the number 2 man of Braga.
And it ends with him, like, they do a cheers, they say salud, or salud. Yep. And then Campos is like, hey, you two guys, you can have whatever you want in this entire club, and I won't care.
He's like, booze, women... take it all.
He does put people in the same category as drinks, and that's...
He does, yeah. Those are the only 2 things he lists. He says booze. He says booze, broads, whatever. Whatever you want.
Nice.
Vin goes down to the dance floor and dances a bit.
There's also, I think, at this point in the film that Anda pointed out, the subtitles said that there was Spanish music playing, and it was actually Italian.
It was Italian music. Yeah, her knowledge of Italian came in handy there. We should mention we watched this with some women, and they were significantly less offended by all the sexy women crack than we were. In fact, they were just like, "That's a nice bum. I like that bum." At the time we were like being overly sensitive, like, "Oh no."
Well, I guess maybe we are snowflakes.
No, maybe we are snowflakes, but I think it also depends on the fact that we have all this context of the other movies being bad at the same time.
Yeah.
So they don't.
This movie is like tame by comparison to the other movies.
So I think in a vacuum, this one's pretty grand, though it does have some issues, of course.
It's very like classic cinema.
It's cinema sexism.
Hollywood cinema, I guess, where it's just like, oh, there's a party and here are the sexy women. And I guess the women that we watched this with were just like, yes, we expect this of Hollywood. Or thank you. We'll look at the women.
Cian, we are snowflakes. Or maybe we're virtue signaling. That's what it is. Trick on us.
Let's balance it out. We hate women.
Wait. You've done a 180. Luke. We can't spend 3.5 podcasts talking about how women should not be objectified in movies and everything, and then go, actually, the official podcast stance is that we hate. We hate Gal Gadot, not because of her opinions and the way she carries herself.
She's a woman.
It's because she's a woman. That's not acceptable, Luke, and I won't have it.
No, we should switch between stances every other episode.
I'd rather not ever have that stance, actually, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, same. So Brian goes to like follow Campos and try and get a better understanding of what's going on. Vin is trying to find the car that killed Letty, and eventually he gets down to like the garage in the nightclub place. And he sees the car, and Gal Gadot is there again, and she is still into him, and eventually they end up talking about Vin's ideal woman, and it's clearly not Gal Gadot because he talks about his ideal woman and then leaves because obviously he's talking about Letty,
and she knows it too.
They have a weird conversation about bodywork. And she's like, "Are you one of the boys that appreciates cars more than women?" And it's like, it's very leading, and she's obviously trying to get at what he wants in a woman because she wants him, and that's her character.
No, she also helps him. Fuck, actually.
Yeah, if it was Love Island,
spoiler,
she'd be asking, "What is your type on paper?"
I have these papers.
Yeah, but the car that he sees, he's pointed out that it's Phoenix, who is Mother's Milk from The Boys.
Great name.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the end of the scene. Brian is going to meet up with the cartel in his car, and the FBI says, "Stop speeding, you bad man." And he's like, "Nope."
Because apparently I can do whatever the fuck I want.
One bad judgment call away, and he has committed lots of traffic violations on the way to this meetup. Also, did you clarify, Luke, that it was the green Ford Torino that was Phoenix's car with the
nitrometh.
Yeah, the nitrometh car with the spooky scene from earlier with Vin sniffing the dust and instantly knowing everything.
Yeah, he didn't even have to sniff the dust; he just had to touch it.
Yeah, he just touched vague yellow dust, and instantly he could reconstruct the whole thing in his mind palace.
I saw a video today, and it was like I was searching for vaccine information, and the video was Mind Palace memory tool vaccination, some particular like rubella or something vaccination dates, and it was a Mind Palace video that was like an animated room, and there's stuff in it, and there's like a song, and it's to tell you what the amount of time between the vaccinations is or something like that. So that it was just like, and it's 30 days from the first one to the second one, but it would tell you in the weird Mind Palace with like a story to it so that you remember it better. And I was like, could you not just Google it if you don't remember? Or just set like a calendar notification or something. But the Mind Palace has made it to YouTube. It's on there for Sherlock, I guess, if he's looking.
How many views does the Mind Palace have?
I'll check now. We got time, it looks like.
I thought when you were saying at first that it was going to be directed at medical professionals so that they would know when to schedule the next person's appointment, but it seems like from your description that it's directed at the other people who are getting the vaccine.
Yeah, it
To
is.
remember when they should get the next one.
It's a lot of anti-vax stuff I'm getting when I search for this.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, here we go. Immunization schedule memory palace. This is it. Hello. I'm going to send a link into the chat. So this is in the podcast now. I want it to be. It's IPV immunization schedule memory palace interactive polo player, and it's a weird horse and a shoe on a television screen and a bubble bath with an oar and then a polo player with an empty bottle of wine, and yeah, it's a polio vaccine mind palace video, and I guess the idea is it's polo. It's a polo player. And it's called the inactive polio vaccine or something like that. So it's an inactive polo player. Oh, it's so weird. And
looks like he's had a little too much wine. Why is that?
So
notable?
wine.
Oh, it's part of the Mind Palace.
Yeah, it's in the Mind Palace. So what's the two? So. Wait, why does wine stand for the number 2? So that's because the first dose of the vaccine is given after 2 months. But why does wine mean 2? Notice the horse with the luscious brows.
He says using the major system.
Hair stands for the number 4. So yeah, so this is... Oh.
Shoe means 6.
Shoe means... Why does shoe mean 6? TV stands for 18. So yeah, you can find weird Mind Palace videos also on YouTube. So maybe Vin had a look at these.
This is 1,500
Wait,
views.
hold on. There's one comment.
The only comment, the only comment
is from Durga Saha, and it says, "Super, please upload video like this." But they already did upload this video.
They already did. It's this video.
You're watching it currently, Durga. You're watching the video. Oh, amazing!
Very good.
So anyway, Brian goes to the meetup with the other cartel people, and he sees that they're like searching for bugs and trackers and stuff like that. But he has one in the car because the FBI made him.
Because he's a police and they want to keep tabs on him because of all of the stuff he did in the past, I guess, in particular.
His poor decision making.
It was also noted earlier that the 3 previous informants they sent to like investigate the cartel were brutally murdered and came back in body bags.
So Brian, in order to get rid of the tracker, rips apart his own dash and like takes it out from inside there and then puts it into his NOS drink can.
He does have NOS drink, yeah. And the can is a Faraday cage.
Yeah, clearly.
It's not only is it bad enough that he has a police tracker and they're scanning for bugs, presumably not with a metal detector because they're cars. But also the tracker that he has makes an obnoxiously loud beeping noise.
Yeah, it has a light on it, a big red light.
Yeah,
It's they get into the car, ask him to roll on the video and roll on the window, and it's just that beeping, flashing light coming from inside the
Brian's
truck.
sweating and looking at him like the gif of Jordan Peele sweating. He's just staring at him like.
Oh, I'm not recording. Oh, what?
It's just NOS.
Just NOS, don't worry about that. Why is your drink glowing, sir? Shut up.
It's NOS.
It does that. It's not healthy.
And then all the cars go into a big truck. Vin just is asleep inside the truck for most of the journey until somebody asks him a question, and then he's immediately awake. So I guess he's like Daredevil as well. where he just has perfect senses.
It's not surprising at this stage.
And this is possibly the most confusing part of the movie, because they get in the truck in LA and then they go across to Mexico, and then they're not shown that they're given the drugs to get a path, like to bring across the border. It's just kind of implied, and then they go and try and smuggle it across the border.
So it comes across as they smuggle them into Mexico, and then tell them to smuggle themselves back.
This is the second test to get into the cartel.
Where you go to Mexico and come back, but like through our pre-established like routes, so there's not really much of a test happening.
And that's when they get to what I guess is probably what Donald Trump had in mind when he thought of the wall.
It's the big wall,
yeah. Which is just like this huge, like basically a DMZ, like the one between North and South Korea, where like people are constantly watching with huge cameras that can just take in like endless amounts of area.
Though, Luke, we should say very slow turning motors on the camera. Very slow.
Yeah, but they very easily scramble a helicopter to come and just check everything. But that's not a problem for the cartel, because they can go through the mountain.
They go under it.
They have like, they have like a button that opens a door in the mountain, and then there's just tunnels the entire way through into the US.
But and
so presumably the fence goes up and over the mountain they are tunneling through, because the scene with the cameras and all the men watching the border is like the fence is in the middle of like a big empty desert, and they're driving across the big empty desert.
Huge open area.
Like, and the guy says, "Oh, there's heat signatures in this area of the fence," and they want to turn the camera to look at it, and the camera is so slow to turn around that the cars have driven across a whole desert and into Magic Mountain tunnel before the camera turns around to see them.
Yeah, so they need to invest in, I don't know, a motor, I guess.
It's the only thing missing from the Great Wall.
So the cars go under the mountain. They're being led by Phoenix through the tunnels, and eventually they come out the other side, like just in time to avoid the helicopter. And then they get to like the drop-off point.
This is also the point where, because Phoenix comes in later on to lead them through the mountain, this is the point where Dom learns that the green Torino is his car. I think Gal Gadot tells him that it's Phoenix's car, but does he know who Phoenix is?
Is it Phoenix or Phoenix?
I don't remember.
I think it's Phoenix. Doesn't matter.
Maybe I also had a feeling the subtitles said like FEENIX or something.
Yeah.
FENIX.
Yeah.
There could be lots of funny pronunciation going on there. But Vin does meet him at the street race trial to determine who the drivers are. But I don't know if he knows it's him, because he does a weird like uncontrollable anger thing where he goes out of the formation of the cars, who are like bumper to bumper across this huge open desert for no real reason except that a tunnel is coming up, which none of them know about. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get the man in the green car because we hate him."
Yeah. It's not like the best point of the movie, this part. But Vin eventually gets to the point when they're just like heading straight towards the mountain, and I guess he's like, "Oh, I guess they're traveling in a straight line for a reason." Yeah. But they go into the mountain, they get to the drop-off point, and this is where we finally see that, oh, they were definitely smuggling like loads of drugs through the mountains. We just didn't see them like get given the drugs. Vin like unscrews the top of his nos in the car,
and we wonder, why would he do that? But we'll see.
Why is he doing that? And then he confronts Phoenix and like talks about Letty, and it leads to like a shootout in which Brian kills a lot of people.
He gets on the ground, like posts up and just starts shooting people.
Yeah.
Even people who I assume are like running away. He's just like pop, 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 It's great. That's our hero.
There are lots of cartel men around in the scene, all with guns, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're here for the drugs. They're here to collect the drugs."
I think Phoenix escapes like pretty quickly, and then the cars blow up because of the NOS.
And Vin lit the cigarette lighter.
Oh yes, he did like the cigarette lighter. He knew like that would coincide with like the perfect time to attack. And this is the part where like Vin just gets shot in the shoulder and just doesn't react.
He gets shot from behind directly into his huge meatball of a shoulder, and he barely flinches and then continues using the arm as normal.
I think he like literally picks the guy up and like throws him into a car. But yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, everyone else is like running for cover, and Vin is just
He's
in the
standing
middle of the
there,
huge
so
shootout,
calm.
standing in the open, like beating up cartel men
With his fists.
with his huge fists and big meaty shoulders.
So Brian and Vin take the truck filled with drugs now and bring it with them, I guess as like leverage against the cartel. Here's the part where like the FBI are complaining about how other countries have bad fingerprint technology. They're like, oh, we can't find anything on these people.
I'm trying to get Braga's fingerprints.
Yeah, they got. I think Brian like brought back evidence from the nightclub for like fingerprinting and stuff like that. And the whole thing is like, oh, these other countries are terrible for their bad.
God, I hate these other countries.
Yeah.
Why can't they be like America?
With our big fingerprint database, they have to manually run all their fingerprints. Idiot poor countries.
That's gonna be really annoying for my investigate.
So Brian and Vin decide to like hide the truck with the drugs in the FBI impound lot. Brian kind of jokes a bit and says that Dom owes him a 10-second car, and then Vin just breaks into a car and gives it to
I thought you were gonna say breaks into
because that's how
song.
that works. I mean, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
But,
UMG minds.
also, it is revealed that they just know the exact value of the drugs they have, which is like 60 million.
Oh wait, we never addressed that the song has changed.
We can address it at the end. It's fine.
We'll address it at the end.
Yeah. Here's where they have like a family dinner. They've called Mia to try and help with the bullet wound that isn't bothering Vin in any way. And then they have like a family dinner with like Chinese takeout. Dom reaches in first and has to say grace, the classic Toretto family tradition. And he also puts his Corona down too hard and causes it to overflow.
Yeah, and it's not addressed. We see it like on the table overflowing, and everyone just.
The shot is from, I think, outside
Yeah.
the window, looking
Yeah.
in at them having having this family meal, and you can see his Corona overflowing because he's so big and strong.
It's
and puts it
very
down
funny.
with so much
It's
zest.
like it's proof that even real life Vin Diesel is probably superhuman because he drinks Corona so much, but he still can't work out how to put it down like gently.
Yeah. So after the dinner, like Dom goes into the other room and apparently he's looking through a box of like Letty's stuff and finds like a burner phone, but there's only like one number or two numbers in it, and she calls it.
He
and,
calls the
like,
most recent number.
Yeah, and it goes to Brian's like work phone. And so Vin gets very angry and beats up Brian. Which kind of is a trend in these movies at this point.
Yeah, I mentioned this that
Yeah.
Brian gets beat up like several times per movie.
Yeah, and I guess it's revealed that Letty had come to Brian and tried to like make a deal that she would go undercover in order to get a pardon for Dom to like come back to the US. And that's what led to her getting killed by Phoenix.
I was a bit confused by the scene at the time. I wasn't sure why Dom saw that Letty had Brian's number and then tried to beat the shit out of him. Because I was like, wouldn't she have his number?
Like, he says it under the guise of like, "Oh, when were you going to tell me you were boning Letty or something?"
He says
I feel
working.
like he says that. Yeah.
working her meant like putting her undercover as like an
Oh, okay.
informant.
Oh, that's what he says. Okay, I thought it
Yeah.
was something else.
Ah, gotcha.
But Brian gets weirdly angry while he's lying on the floor and shouts that he's sorry.
he's
a
on
lot.
he's
Yeah,
on
he
his back.
does.
He starts kicking stuff like a toddler, and he screams angrily, "I'm sorry, Dom. I'm sorry." And he's just like kicking stuff on the ground.
So a toddler, a 3-year-old tantrum
Yeah.
on the ground. It's very
Yeah,
silly.
it's
like
very
a turtle on
weird.
his back, just sort of mindlessly flailing
Yeah.
and screaming.
So Brian goes to the FBI after this and says, "Look, we have the drugs, and we'll try and get you Braga by like arranging a meetup, but Vin goes free if that happens." And at the same time, Vin calls up Gal Gadot and is like, "Hey, want to meet up?" I think Cian, you or Deji, you said that you were wondering, is Gal Gadot Braga in this
Yeah, I
situation?
thought she was going to be. I was actually pretty excited about it.
Because it would have done wonders for, actually making the female characters have roles outside of
Yeah,
the
but
men.
it seemed like a kind of a cool. It would have been a cool plot point that like, oh, she
Yeah.
took a liking to him and she was the boss all along, and maybe there's a way to work this out or something. But no.
I felt like there was definitely potential there, but no, it wasn't that. Also, there is like very little resistance from the FBI. The FBI boss man is like, "No, you'll bring in the 60 million of drugs, and Toretto." And Brian's like, "No, we're here to get the Braga, the big drugs man."
And he goes, "Nah, right."
And they're just like, yeah, all right. Even though Brian has notably gone rogue many times in the past.
Yeah, the head FBI guy is like just trying to think, is this the bad decision that makes him a criminal, or is it the other one? The previous 6 ones that have happened in like the last 3 days.
Also, is this the scene where does this come afterwards? This is when I think it's before they're organizing the exchange with Braga. Brian's like in the office.
Yeah, this is the part where he's like trying to organize like the pardon for Vin.
Yeah. So he's in the office, and he makes the argument. God,
He said so.
What does he do here? That's very silly.
They say, "Where are the drugs?" And he says, "They're safe. I have taken them and I have them." And they're like, "Huh?" And then they say like, "We need to get Braga," and so he says, "Yeah." Will arrange a meeting with him directly to return the drugs. And his bosses say, he will never come to a meeting to get the drugs. Are you kidding me? He knows that would be a trap. And then Brian says, yeah, but he can't afford to lose it. So, okay, I've said it in the wrong order. So the first part...
the logic here is completely backwards.
First
and
thing
that he says...
Yeah, go ahead, Cian.
He says that there are $60 million worth of drugs, and the FBI want to flag it in front of the press or whatever, and also Toretto, and they'd be very satisfied with that. And he's like, no, we're here to get Braga. We'll arrange a meetup because he.
If we don't do it,
because if we don't, Braga will just smuggle another $60 million worth of drugs over the border next week, because
that's how big the operation
they have been smuggling. That's how big the operation is, and they've been smuggling more heroin across the U.S.-Mexican border than Pablo Escobar did in a decade. And then 2 sentences later says, "Oh no, Braga will definitely show up to this meet. That's definitely not a trap by the FBI because he can't afford to lose the $60 million worth of drugs.
He can't afford to lose those drugs.
Can't,
although he will do this.
That he will
week.
Replace instantly next week. That he'll replace.
Yeah, so that's how Brian convinces them to do exactly what he wants, and it's absolute horseshit. It's so stupid, and it works as well.
So they go to the meetup. Vin is pretty skeptical about the fact that they'll just let him go after they get Braga. And then he's like asking Brian's like, "Oh, do you still leave cookies and milk out for Santa?" And I was like, no. Maybe Brian does.
Yeah, maybe he does. Let's not take that away from him, please.
Yeah. And then like Campos and Phoenix show up, and they bring like an old man with them, who is like, I guess, meant to be Braga, but Brian and Vin are both kind of like this guy doesn't seem like the head of
It's
a
because
cartel.
he's looking nervously at both of them. He's
At the same time, yeah, he's very nervous and sweating.
and they're like, "This is not the man."
At the same time, sorry, Luke, go on.
Yeah, the FBI get like confirmation that Braga was like one of the prints that Brian was able to get from the club. So, you know, they were like, yeah, that's good enough. FBI agent Steve Wozniak was like, that's good enough for me. Let's do the raid. And it turns out that Campos was Braga all along. He was just kind of like hiding as like the second in command, which, you know, isn't a terrible tactic, to be honest.
And they couldn't see his prints that they were getting sent from some other agency. I guess
fax. It was a fax.
They were being faxed. They couldn't see it on many of their FBI
Sophie
big
is
screens. It had to be faxed and printed for some reason. And Sophie's like getting really angsty by the printer, like waiting for this thing to.
Yeah,
to
Sophie's
print.
like, we haven't got it yet because it's faxing through. We haven't got the picture yet. And Steve Wozniak's like, it doesn't matter. We got confirmation. Let's just get him. And then the picture's there, and we're all like, oh, it's the other man. It's the second in command is actually Braga.
Yeah. So Braga and Phoenix escape and nearly run over Gal Gadot, but Vin saves
Good
her.
on him.
And then they drive off together in the car that Vin stole for Brian. And then Brian gets in trouble with like the FBI internal affairs people being like, aha, you let another person go and Vin, so you're in big trouble, Buster. But he's like, you know, how is that my fault? I wasn't the one who gave the signal to go.
Steve Wozniak, you asshole.
Yeah, no anger or repercussions towards Steve Wozniak for his premature capturing of the wrong man.
They like take his badge and gun and are like, you're suspended, go do something else. So Brian goes and meets up with Vin. He says like, oh, I'm gonna go do this with you. Vin is like, I'm not sure I'm coming back after this one. And Brian's just like, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I'll do that.
And this is the part where like they see Mia, Brian goes inside, and then without exchanging any words, just proceeds to have sex.
He walks in. She's visibly crying.
She's crying,
and then he turns her around. She's covered in tears, and he starts making out with her, and then just like within seconds picks her up and puts her on the countertop. Like, we're gonna fuck now as well. Like, it's such a 0 to 100 at such an inappropriate time.
Yeah, and like she's clearly upset. And like Vin is just outside in like the garage.
The garage door is open.
The lights are on. The lights are on in the kitchen. The windows are open. There's no curtains.
The kitchen door is also open.
Oh, it's just he's uncomfortably close by for this to be happening.
Yeah, and after they've done that, they like say their goodbyes to each other, and Brian and Vin just leave to go to Mexico, I guess, because that's where Braga went to go hide. And it's just like, again, Jordana Brewster is just there for like 30 seconds as like, here's the woman to make the men more interesting, and it's bad.
Yeah, but as we said, it seems she'll have a much nicer role in the next movie, which is like the final scene of the movie tells us that.
It's getting better. There's less objectification in this one.
Better.
The women aren't well written, but it's fine. We're getting there.
So they meet up with Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot gets a nice feel of Vin's pecs and then tells him where Braga is. And then they just kind of sneak into the church where he's like doing a confession or doing a mass.
He's a bad man, but he gets over it by giving a priest a lot of money. And then the priest is like, I don't want to do that. But he takes it.
Yeah, and there's like 30 people with guns standing outside.
They make a huge deal of parading a massive convoy for Braga to go visit this like small town church, and he has a small army of cartel men standing outside the church, and they're all very heavily armed. And then Vin and Brian just appear inside the church
with
while
guns.
he's
like,
praying.
Hello, it's us now.
With guns, like hello, surprise, you're not forgiven or something.
Yeah, so they just show up, they point their guns at him. Vin looks like he's about to kill Braga, but eventually he's like, no, you'll go back to the US now to face justice. He's controlled his uncontrollable rage.
He's done this. This is a big moment for Vin, because like you expect him to kill Braga, but instead he's like, no, the law is happening to you instead.
Then he makes it very clear that he's going to kill.
Yeah,
that
that particular revenge and rage is going nowhere.
Yeah, it's very much still on the line.
Yeah, so they put Braga in Brian's car and they start driving to like the border passage that they used before. And it's at this point that we get like a Mad Max style like chase scene where a bunch of like the cartels start like chasing down Vin and Brian, trying to like recapture Braga. And they're not very concerned for the safety of Braga because they just keep on shooting at the car he's in. Until Phoenix shows up and like kills one of them for shooting at them. And Brian goes through the mountain. Well, no, there's a very important scene where Vin uses his big strong arms on his car window and then a shotgun. He breaks the window.
Vin decides he wants the window to be broken and then just puts himself through it, like with very little effort.
Yeah, and then he uses his shotgun to like shoot at the tires of one of the cars, and as soon as he does, it just flips like immediately, presumably killing everyone inside.
The car does a full front flip and explodes with Vin's incredible car stopping power shotgun.
He does it 2 times, 2 shots, 2 cars flipped upside down. It's really incredible. One on each side of his car, by the way. So he had to go through like the passenger side window, I guess.
And then he like tells Brian to go through the passage while he like draws everyone away, except for Phoenix, who's a bit more focused on the task at hand. And so they're driving through the mountain, and eventually it leads up to Brian gets to the end, but loses control of the car for some reason.
They do, just before we get there, they do bust through the side of the mountain. Like they can't quite find where the proper entrance is.
Brian just guesses where it is, and he's like,
both of them guess exactly where the entrance is, and it's just like the mountain is a set piece on a film, which it is, and
the entrance to the mountain is like plywood or something,
just made of paper, as they drive straight through it and not die instantly.
And towards the end of the tunnel, Brian loses control. He kind of spins his car like sideways slightly as he goes through like the other side of the mountain, and then Phoenix like T-bones the car, sending like it just rolling over and over again. And Brian is like very badly injured. I think he gets shot by Phoenix here, but Phoenix like picks up Braga and is like trying to help him out. At the same time, like Vin is making his own way through the mountain and trying to like take out 6 or 7 cars at the same time.
and he fucking does as well.
Which he does, yeah. And it comes to like one of the most insane things I think we've seen so far.
A fantastic stunt.
Yeah, like for some reason, like both of the doors on 2 cars like traveling side by side break off, and just before like Vin is about to hit a wall, he leaps from his car into the other one and kicks the other through the missing door and kicks the other person out. And it's just like he is a superhero.
he dives. I think even Goyi, who was with us at the time, she turned to me and she was just like, "What? What is this?"
And he has a new car now, and he finishes off like getting through
he
the
crashes
mountain.
through some of the supports so that the other people die at some point.
Yeah. And so like he makes it through the mountain. He sees that Brian is like down on the ground. Phoenix is fine. But Phoenix notices him, tries to shoot at him, and then Brian does a wheelie in a car, or not, Vin does a wheelie in a car that he's never been in before. and doesn't know anything about effortlessly.
He thinks Phoenix is going to shoot me, so I'm going to make it so that he sees the bottom of my car, and he does it.
And
He
the
doesn't see
bottom
the
of the
bottom
car
of
is
his car, though. He's crushed between Phoenix's car and Vin's new one, and is just like left propped up against
So
the bonnet.
let's set
of the
this
car.
let's set this scene very clearly. Brian is on the ground. Phoenix is going to kill him. There is a car there. Vin bursts through and he's like, I'm going to come at you now and get you, Phoenix, with my car. Phoenix is like, fine, I'm going to shoot you with my gun. And he starts shooting him with the gun. Vin does a wheelie in the car so that you can't see him. And then just before arriving at Phoenix, drops down again, isn't shot. And Phoenix was going to jump and run away. But Brian, on the ground, grabs his leg. So now Brian's there with Phoenix, hands on the leg. Phoenix is like, oh, I can't go to the side now, even though I could have just gone towards Brian, and that would be fine, but whoopsie. And then Brian should be killed by the wheels of the car, of course, because his head is exactly where the front wheel would be. His arm should also be crushed, but he isn't. And Phoenix is fucking impaled into the car behind him.
Yeah, pretty much. It's probably the most graphic
And it's shown.
death
It's like
so
shown.
far.
You
Yeah,
see it happen
yeah.
exactly.
The entire thing is shown. Was it upsetting for you seeing that graphic of death in this movie?
They don't show any
Yeah.
blood. Also, did we talk about the inappropriate torture scenes earlier in the club?
Were there torture scenes in the club?
Was that
Who was
this
tortured
film?
in the club?
No, I don't think anyone was tortured in the club.
In one of the
Was no
previous
one tortured
films,
in
there's
this
the
film?
rat torture in the club.
Oh, there's the rat torture
Yeah.
in the club. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's the oil waterboard in like the first one. I don't think there's any.
There is a
torture
lot
in
of
this one.
brutal.
But there is a
deaths,
lot
yeah.
of tone inappropriate brutal deaths for a fun
Yeah.
action film.
Yeah. Vin is of course fine after the crash. He goes to check up on Brian, who's also fine except for the bullet wound. And then he's like, "Let me see it," and he's like, "You're grand."
He's like, I've had one of those before. it really feels like nothing. And Brian's like, what? No. And Vin's like, wait a minute. Maybe something is amiss.
And then I guess like the border patrol or the FBI show up and arrest everyone. You don't hear much about Braga after that, I guess, except that like he's been taken into custody. But we do cut to like Vin in a courtroom being sentenced by a judge, and like even though like Brian was like, oh, he helped with Braga and stuff like that, the judge is like, no, I must make an example of you, the bad man,
because he's done badness for like over a decade at this point.
And he sentenced him to like, what is it, like 25 years to life in prison. So Vin has a court date. His judge is like, I have to make an example of you, so I'm going to give you 25 years to life in prison with no chance of early parole, which seems kind of excessive.
I support it. I think he's done so many crimes.
But like, I mean, most of his crimes are just stealing stuff. It never really ends with like a murder. Like, he didn't even kill Lance.
He did kill a lot of people.
He does kill a lot of people here.
In this movie,
so
but they're drugs men.
Oh, they're from a different country. Who fucking cares then?
I mean, I'm trying to go through the logic of what would be an American movie response to this.
Okay.
Not an actual Americans. I know they're not like that. But yeah, so it ends with like Vin being led into like a prison bus. Brian is very upset. He leaves the courtroom in disgust.
While Vin is being sentenced, he does just stand up and walk out, which I don't know. It seemed a bit mean.
And,
seems a bit dramatic.
It is.
It's not your moment.
Yeah, stop
Brian.
making
It's
it about
Vin's.
you.
God.
Very big Buster drama, and he has his arms around Lee as well in the
He
background.
does.
Yeah, they're back
Nice.
together.
They're back together, I guess, after the weird kitchen scene with no dialogue.
The love story resumes, and I'm here for it. Yeah, so Vin is on the bus, and then Don Omar and Tego Calderon are back in a car behind the bus. Mia is in
She's
her
driving.
car, and then
That means
she's
next
driving.
movie.
She gives like a smirk to be like, aha, I'm an action person now. And then Brian is in Vin's Charger somehow because that's like the third one they've gone through. So because there was the one from the first movie, and then there's the one that's buried under a mountain, and then there's just a spare one he has lying around just in case. And it sort of ends with kind of the implication that they're just going to break him out of prison. And Vin does use his super empathy here to like realize that people are coming to break him out.
He sees a car drive past the bus, and he
doesn't even see them drive by. They're just behind the bus.
I think he hears it, and he
hears the engines, and he's like, "Other cars, that's for me."
That's for me. I'm the main character. Wow, and that's the end of the movie.
It was a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Do you think it's a genuinely good movie, or do you think it's just a good Fast and the Furious movie?
I think it's a little bit tropey, but if you're not offended by that, and you're not offended by the fact that certainly there will be no Bechdel test passing that sort of idea, then it's a pretty good movie. It's fun. There's enjoyable scenes to look at. As soon as you accept that Vin is a superhero, it just becomes quite enjoyable to watch.
And
yeah, I think I agree. Like, if you accept a lot of the movie silliness, Vin is a superhero. There's, a lot of stereotypical Hollywood stuff. I think there's missed potential, particularly for the female characters. It could have been...
Gal could have been the man.
Gal could have been the man, and that would have been a nice...
Even though we're not a fan of Gal.
Even though we're not a fan of her, it would have been better if she was the big man, because...
It seemed set up, right?
It seemed like a good setup, and it would have gone a long way to undoing the previous treatment of women in these films.
Looking at you, Tokyo Drift.
But that being said, I think, if you accept it for what it is, it's just a fun action movie about cars. It's shot pretty well. It doesn't... I don't know when this was actually released.
2009.
It still looks pretty good for a 2009 film. And it's it's fun to watch. There's good stunts. I enjoyed it.
I mean, I think this is easily the best one we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of like pretty much everything, stunts and like action and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like the acting is also just better, I think, in most cases. Mia and Jordana Brewster and Gal Gadot aren't given like much to work with in terms of like an actual character to play, but other than that, it's a pretty interesting movie. Like, the story's pretty decent compared to some of the other ones. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Alright, I think that means it's time for ratings, boys. Deji, can go first if you wish.
Yeah, sure.
So, Luke, do you remember what rating I gave the first movie? Was it 7?
I think you gave it a 7. Yeah.
Or was it like 7 down to 6.5 for the badness, or was it 7.5 down to 7? I think 7.
I think it was 7.5 down to 7.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give this movie an 8.5. I really liked it. I'm trying to leave some room because I am aware that in particular Furious 7 is might be pretty good. We'll see. But I think it's a great movie. Good watch. Oh, and I haven't given it a rating thing. Let's do 8.5 photo plays out of 10. Out of 10 photo plays.
And would you like to rate next?
Yeah, I think it's a solid film. Fun, very enjoyable. I'll give this 8 iguanas out of 10.
Oh, the iguana comes back. We love him.
I'm going to agree with Deji here, and I'm going to give it 8.5 overflowing coronas out of 10. I suppose before we finish off, were there any favorites for you guys? Like, favorite like background characters or things like that?
When Vin caught the engine, I lost my mind. When Vin catches the chain to stop the engine, I fucking lost it. That's one of my favorite scenes in cinema history, I think.
But like, did you have any favorite? Like, we've had like Lance and Slapjack, and
I love Sophie.
Sophie, you liked? Yeah, I think she was a good addition.
I think she's
She
the
will-
only standout secondary character, really.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too.
Steve Wozniak is too much of a wang to like take seriously.
Oh,
No.
Dwight was a pretty good.
Yeah, I was going
a
to say favorite quotes are Dwight calling Brian a nutsack twice.
twice. And then saying Dwight never does no meth or something.
Yeah.
He's like, you do now.
Yeah, Dwight is. I mean, he's such a terrible person. But, yeah.
Good comic relief, and I think it was unintentional because the two guys in Vin's crew at the start that are featured in like the short film have like lots of banter about. At the start, they have lots of banter when they're doing the truck heist of like, every time we go near a prison, we have to break you out and stuff. And I think they would have been a funny duo if they were ever featured in the film again.
Yeah.
But they are at the beginning, the very beginning, and they're at the very end, and never anywhere else.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think my favorite line would be like after the race when Dom spins Brian as just like still a buster.
That is a fantastic line. Still a buster. Gotcha. That's really good. Yeah.
And Deji, any favorite lines, or are you also going with Dwight?
No, I think some of the Dwight lines are
Dwight
really
and his
fantastic.
nutsacks.
Yeah. No, I think that's got to be
Yeah.
my favorite.
So yeah, I guess general housekeeping stuff. The intro music has changed to some stuff by internet music man Kevin McLeod.
Famous for a long time, internet music man.
Yeah, he's made like 10,000 royalty free like songs and stuff like that have been on the internet for a long time.
Because we're gonna get
Jess has
fucking
listened to them all.
sued.
Yeah.
Even if we never make any money, we'll get fucking sued.
And I've like, been used in like YouTube since like the very beginning, because they were just like, here's royalty free music you don't have to worry about.
Just give him a credit in the description or whatever.
Oh yeah, he's already credited.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that was the deal. It's like, you just give him a credit and it's fine. Good on
We've
you, Kevin.
listened to all 10,000 songs.
We did.
While researching for this podcast.
Yeah, we did. We listened to a lot of songs. Would recommend Android Sock Hop.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Or just like the Latin music playlist on YouTube that's on his channel.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one.
Yeah. Other than that, we're now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher.
Thanks to who? All Luke. All of this, Luke. Thanks,
No.
Luke.
No.
Takes care of all the business.
He
all
does
the-
it all.
I didn't put it on Amazon in case Jeff wanted to steal it.
Well, he wouldn't see it. He's in space at the moment. Wouldn't it be funny to be a person who thinks that Jeff went to space and stayed there for a while, like he didn't come back? That'd be good, I think.
Jeff's new thing is that he was going to space.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Can I say
Thank
special
you.
thanks to Nos, which is for some
Yeah.
reason a credit at the end of this film.
Oh, yeah,
it was
it
a special
is.
thanks to Nos.
Oh, did you get the stuff you wanted from looking at the entire credits?
Oh yeah, I
Did
did
you?
watch the whole credits. What I wanted was just to have a quick look at them. I did see that there were people on the set whose job title was gang bosses, which I think is funny. There was three different human beings credited as the one title Hot Women. There was a Best Boy Grip, Rigging Best Boy Electric, and Best Boy Electrician. So Best Boy was Christopher Warren, Best Boy Grip was Craig Kotala, Rigging Best Boy Electric was Mike Marlette, and Best Boy Electrician on this one was Antonio Sanchez. So they had 4 Best Boys that I saw in this one.
I was wondering why you asked me to just like play through the entire credits.
Yeah, I wanted to check who the Best Boys were on this one.
Yeah, and they were pretty good boys.
They were good boys. It came through.
Yeah. So from this week on Twin Diesel, I have been Jessica Bezos, and with me have been
Digital dermatitis.
digital dermatitis and Ancho Chill.
Ancho Chill.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Outro music.